I'd like to call the planning board meeting for April 22nd, 2015 to order. Anne Marie, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Garvey. I'm the chairman of this board. And as we did the last time you folks were here, I'm going to go over some of the ground rules. I'm asking everybody to be civil. There's not to be any calling out while other people are speaking. It's a very simple process. Everybody who wants to speak gets to speak. You get 3 minutes. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. There was a sign-in sheet. If you didn't make the sign-in sheet after everybody that's on the sign-in sheet has been called, I will then call you up. What else? Yes, and everybody who speaks, you get to speak once. There's not anybody coming back and getting another 3 minutes. It's not the way it works.
And all questions are asked to the board, not the applicant.
Okay, thanks. Also, if you have questions that want to be answered, then you will address the questions to the board and not to the applicant. At the end of the public session, the applicant will answer to the best of their ability the questions that were asked. Okay? All right. So, we're here for the first item on the agenda is a Nalitech site plan addition to building 123 PB number 15-13. Final site plan review and review a secret negative declaration. This matter is again on the final site plan approval. In addition, secret regulations permit the lead agency, us, Planning Board of Orangetown, prior to our decision to issue a final approval of an action, to consider new information that may be provided. As you know, in addition to all the information provided previously at the last public hearing on March 11, 2015, the board indicated it would consider all new information in furtherance of its continued secret review and asked the applicant to submit a full EAF, which they have done. To that extent, this full EAF and the additional information presented to the board both before and during tonight's hearing constitute new information. At the conclusion of this hearing, the board may take appropriate action with respect to its previously issued negative declaration. The other thing is, tonight, as I said before, no props, no signs. If you have signs and you want to bring them up while you're speaking, that's not a problem, but there'll be no signs up during any of the presentations. With that, I believe the applicant would like to make an opening statement.
Good evening.
So hold on. Okay, so you'll state your name and your affiliation with the project for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Donald Brenner. I am the attorney for the applicant. My office is in Tapan, New York. As you had mentioned before, we have been before your board. We have received preliminary approval. We had gone before the zoning board and gotten zoning board approval for specific performance standards. We also have been before the architecture review board. We appeared before your board on March 11th, and at that time you requested that it be held over so that the long form could be done, which we had done. We had also appeared before the Rockland County Legislature because one of the legislators from Orangetown requested that a hearing be held on that. And we're here now again. We think we've answered all your questions. My client does want to make a small presentation, which you have limited to 5 minutes. So he's really cut down the performance that, or not performance, but the program that he gave before the Rockland County Legislature. He would also like to make a modified form of it before your board. So the president of the company is David Soldowski, and he would like to make the presentation about my client.
Tonight, Earth Day, we are asking for approval to build a test facility that has the footprint the size of a typical 2,500 square foot home in Rockland County. It's just taller, since we are using gravity to help move materials around the unit. The project has been extensively reviewed by all the requisite authorities in Rockland, Orangetown, and New York State. We have followed all the regulations and have gotten or applied for all the appropriate permits and clearances. The New York State DEC and 2 independent environmental consultants hired by Orangetown confirmed emissions are well below regulated guidelines. In fact, the maximum possible emissions from the test facility at the source will be 18 times below the DEC's guidelines. Levels 0.2 miles away, where the nearest neighbors live, are even lower. No one will be adversely affected by anything being emitted. In simpler terms, air emissions from 1 hour of operation of the test facility are equivalent to operating your ordinary lawnmower for 1 hour or 3 cars on the New York State Thruway driving 55 miles an hour for an hour. We are required to keep records of our operations, which are subject to surprise inspections by the DEC. We are welcoming a monitoring plan administered by a qualified, independent, recognized air quality expert firm. Now, BTX products are found everywhere in Orangetown. Cans of xylene and lacquer thinner, which is 30% toluene, are found on the shelves of your local home improvement and paint stores. You can pick up a few cans on the way home tonight from Lowe's. 25% of gasoline is benzene, toluene, and xylene. So every time you fill up your 16-gallon gas tank, it contains 4 gallons of BTX. Everyone who drove here tonight is safely transporting it. Now, gasoline containing BTX is safely stored in gas stations all over the county, typically 10,000 gallons, but 60,000 gallons at Costco. That's 30 to 180 times more than the maximum 330 gallons Inelitech's allowed to store behind the locked gates of the Pfizer campus per the Orangetown Fire Department. Now, the gas stations on Middletown Road get fuel deliveries by typical 9,000-gallon tanker trucks. Only 330 gallons of BTX at most will be leaving our site every 2 weeks, taken away by a licensed and secure specialty hauler via the same roads the tankers use. Now, we have applied for permits from the DEC for only 3 specific feedstocks: clean wood flour, corn stover, and sugarcane bagasse. We will primarily using about 1,000 pounds a day of wood flour, a commercial product. Contrast this to the 9 million pounds of compost made from processed biosolids from local wastewater treatment plants that are shipped to landscapers every year by the Rockland Solid Waste Authority. You know, it's not just the DEC and the 2 independent consultants that say we're safe. Our 23 highly educated employees, many of whom are here tonight, will all work at the site of the test facility. We work here every day, and that includes me, because we know the operations are safe. Now, using biomass to make things now made from petroleum will help cut global dependence on foreign oil and help combat global warming. Benefits to Orangetown will be bringing back the high-paying jobs that were at the Pearl River site and restoring the tax base. The eyes of the investment and startup world are watching what happens here tonight, and when approved, Inelitech will be a magnet inspiring a broad range of exciting R&D companies to build their futures here. In closing, Inelitech is conducting research, never manufacturing here. Safety is a top priority for all. The emissions are 18 times below all federal and state regulations, and are equivalent to operating a lawnmower for about an hour. Our application has been thoroughly vetted. We respectfully request your approval to proceed with our expansion plans. Thank you for your time and attention. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, as in the past, I'm going to read all of the, well, I'm going to make note of all the correspondence that we've received. I'm only going to note the correspondence that we received prior to the March meeting. Also, I will not be reading, since the March meeting, excuse me. I will not be reading every single letter. I will make note of it. And they are available for review. Too many? So what do you want me to tell them? Yeah, so you can come down to the planning board and you can review them. And after this, if you want, you can review them after we're done too. I'll make my copy available. So, moving forward. The PRC has no additional comments beyond the comments submitted by other agencies for this project. From the Office of Building, Zoning, and Plan Administration Enforcement, Town of Orangetown, John Giardella, no further comments. From the Department of Environmental Management and Engineering, Town of Orangetown, Bruce Peters. He has 4 comments. From the Rockland County Drainage Agency, 9 comments. There's correspondence from the Town of Clarkstown. There's correspondence from Charles Sorensen, PhD, from Analytech, dated April 21st, 2015. 2 correspondence. Cheryl? All this? Yes, I said both dated April 21st. There's correspondence from Mr. Magrino to Mr. Gondon, dated April 13, 2015. In response to Mr. Condon's letter dated April 2nd, 2015. There's an email from Ms. Heather Hurley, Monday, March 23rd, 2015. Another email from Ms. Hurley, March 23rd, 2015. Another email from Ms. Hurley, March 23rd, 2015. Another email from Ms. Hurley, March 24th, 2015. Correspondence from Amy Wortham, March 24, 2015. Another correspondence from Heather Hurley dated March 27, 2015. Another correspondence from Heather Hurley dated March 30th, 2015. Correspondence from the County of Rockland, Office of the County Executive, dated April 1st, 2015. Another email from Amy Wortham, April 2nd, 2015. Another email from Heather Hurley, April 2nd, 2015. Another email from Amy Wortham, April 3rd, 2015. An email from Debbie Donahue, April 3rd, 2015. Veronica Corbiere, April 3rd, 2015. Catherine Siren, April 4th, 2015. Heather Hurley, April 6, 2014, 1:44 p.m. Joanne McElligott, April 6, 2015. Kate McFarland, April 6, 2015. Bethany Cumberworth, Savino, April 6, 2015. Amy Wortham, Tuesday, April 7, 2015. Heather Hurley, April 8, 2015. Cindy Davin, April 8, 2015. Heather Hurley, April 9, 2015. Denise Finnegan, April 9, 2015. Heather Hurley, April 10, 2015. Denise Finnegan Shorn, April 12, 2015. Cindy Davin, Wednesday, April 15, 2015. Heather Hurley, April 15, 2015. Heather Hurley, April 15, 2015. 1 at 317, 1 at 407. Heather Hurley, April 15, 2015, 458. Correspondence from Teresa Panis, or Panis. Email from Denise Finnegan Shorn, April 16, 2015. Analytex presentation from July 16, 2014 to the Regional Economic Development Council, which is part of that email. Thank you. Correspondence from Dr. William Bahari. Yes?
April 15th, James Riley submission.
I don't have, I don't know if I've gotten to it yet. There's still a stack here. If you want to hand it to me, I'll read, I'll just. Correspondence from James Riley on April 22nd, 2015. Dated April 15th. From the Rockland County Department of Health. I'm sorry, Mr. Riley, you're out of order. Mr. Riley, you are out of order. I made the correction, Mr. Riley, you're out of order.
It's date, you have a date of April 22 on the top of it here.
That's the date of the meeting. Submitted April 15th by 5 p.m.
Mr. Riley, you're out of order. Mr. Riley, you're out of order.
Thank you very much.
Rockland County Sewer District Number 1. This is from August 13th, 2014. Well, I guess this is part of somebody's email. Can you ask her who that's from, please? Correspondence from Laura Woodward, April 20th, 2015. Correspondence from Scott Piness, April 21st, 2015.
This was submitted by Heather Hurley. Whatever it is, it's from New York State. She just gave this report.
From Heather Hurley, dated an email 4/17 from the New York State Consolidated Funding Application. Correspondence from Condon Associations, April 15, 2015.
Letters were already read into the record.
Okay.
And before, keep on going. Prior letters. Into the record. Into the record. Okay. Into the record. That's part one. That's part one of the environmental. Right, you didn't read that into the record yet. This is part one, right, long for. That you have to do, you have to read the part one and part
I'm just
two
gonna-
and part three.
We have the full environmental assessment form of Part 1. A, B, C, D. And all the parts that go with it. We also have correspondence from John Giardella for proposed parts 2 and 3 of the full EAF by Analytech, and all corresponding parts.
And these that just came in this evening.
There is correspondence from Robert Magrino dated today, April 22nd, in response to Mr. Condon's letter, or email, that was dated April 21st, 2015. Correspondence from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation dated April 16th, 2015. And correspondence from Daniel Richmond of Zarin and Steinmetz, dated April 22nd, 2015. That's all I have, Cheryl. Okay, that's all I have. Okay, I'm gonna say it one more time. There's a way to address this board, and there's a way not to address this board. If I make a mistake based on dates, you can come up later and correct it. I'm sure we can get it into the record, okay? It's a date. It's not anything but a date. And I've already made mention of it. So I'm asking everybody again to be civil to one another, and we can get through this. Okay. Mr. Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple comments to the applicant. I just want to reiterate some of the requests I had from last meeting.
Okay. Also, while we're speaking, we're asking that people in the audience don't have conversations with each other so that the stenographer can keep a record. You're on.
Again, I'd like to reiterate my requests from last meetings to Analytech regarding the MSDS sheets be required for all chemicals. It should be part of your safety plan with the fire department. And secondly, in terms of continuous emissions monitoring equipment, I understand you will have significant equipment in place and continuous monitoring will be in place. I would like to, I guess, request the escrow that Jose Semos from Clarkstown has asked for periodic testing throughout the year. The amount of testing can be determined and discussed with, I guess, John Giardella's group, quarterly, biannually. It's a safeguard to make sure that the emissions coming out of your stack will be consistent with what's in your permit. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Mr. Dell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, what I'm about to say is my view. I'm not speaking for the board. I believe that we are town planners. I believe that we all take our responsibilities very seriously. I believe we respect each other despite any differences in our views. I'm personally glad that so many Orangetown residents are here and that this meeting is televised so that the voters can understand the planning process and the issues that we must decide. I would like all of our meetings to be televised, and that would ensure greater public access. This record enabled me to view the entire meeting, including the portion that occurred during my unplanned absence. Last meeting, I curtailed my questions with the explicit understanding that I would be given ample opportunity at this meeting to complete my contributions to the review process. I appreciate this accommodation, Mr. Chairman. Although I'm certainly not a chemical engineer, a portion of my relevant background would include technical consultant, United States Department of Energy, Small Business and Innovation Research and Small Business Technology STRR Phase 0 Assistance Program, lead research scientist for a $400,000 grant for NYSERDA, Energy Potential of Regenerative Braking's Environmentally Preferred Power Systems Technologies, principal investigator on numerous green energy research grants for Consolidated Edison, open lectures on green energy topics at the Metropolitan Chapter of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, the New York Hall of Science, Columbia University, the University of Iceland, and have been first author on a number of peer-reviewed papers for ASME and the Geothermal Resources Council. At the meeting in September, I voted for this project based upon the representations made by the applicant and my initial inquiries. Since then, substantial new information has been provided by the review process of the ZBA, the DEC, our outside experts, letters and testimonies from the community, the testimony and questions from the planning board members, and my own research. All of this has made it abundantly clear to me that the full environmental assessment form is warranted. The members of this board and the community have done a very good job asking many of the questions that I would have asked, and I will not re-ask them because that will be a waste of time at this meeting. The applicant has also provided substantially more information than we had in September. However, I'm troubled by the end result. At the last meeting, Mr. Mendel and I specifically required information on the continuous monitoring system. What I've seen is a letter dated April 21st from Mr. Sorensen, which is a restatement of the last meeting that the applicant will use the EPA BACT Best Available Control Technology. This is not what I had requested. In the September 10th meeting, Mr. Whiting said that Elotech is a research development company. I'm getting this from the transcript. We are doing research to convert biomass, groundwood for agricultural products using pyrolysis to form chemicals that are green chemicals. My question, sir, is what are the agricultural products, or was this a misquote?
Our feedstock is wood flour, corn stover, and sugar bagasse.
I don't think that's quite what I asked. You're converting biomass, groundwood for agricultural products. Is the 4 in error?
The 4 is in error now.
Okay, well, that's what I heard at the meeting, and that's one of the reasons some of the questions did not occur. I understand these things happen. Okay. Next, from your web technology site, says our technology is using biomass as an alternative to petroleum for petrochemicals. Our technology is adapted to a broad range of agricultural materials. I assume that's what you're referring to. You could then use corn stalks, et cetera, eventually for your type of technology?
That's correct.
Thank you very much. Okay, also in the last part of the process, you said part of the process generates CO2 and CO, and it generates some minor hydrocarbon emissions that are thermally oxidized. My question was, okay, there's nothing like PCB, no acid, no fumes, or anything else like that?
There is not.
Okay, well, we might have some discussion about the BXT. But anyway, let's go beyond that. In your website, you also say the CFP technology is covered under issued patents and filed patent applications owned by Elotech. Okay, Do you own or do you lease these patents, or are they just patents that are out there?
I'm sorry, some of our patents are licensed from the University of Massachusetts.
Okay, so the patents you were referring to are licensed to you.
Some are. Is the button's not on.
Hit the button in the middle.
High tech. Some patents are licensed by Anelitech from the University of Massachusetts. Others, are our own inventions that we filed and are pending approval.
All right, so they're now published applications, is that true?
Some are published, that's correct.
Okay, well, I've seen a couple of them. Thank you very much. The applicant has observed that if this application were successful, other similar companies will want to locate here. This application will set a precedence. My review of the technologies indicates to me that in the best of all possible worlds, accepting the validity of the data problem, there should not be emissions that exceed the federal limits. Should not, assuming that all of this is correct. Now, I personally believe that these limits are inordinately high. What happens if there are unforeseen problems with this technology? Is Orangetown a place where this larger scale test should take place? It could be argued that eliminating trees and forests, as per the pictures and statements on your website, to produce items such as plastic chairs is not green technology. This is obviously a very difficult decision. We are required by law to give a fair and impartial hearing. We are also required by law to take a good, hard look at this application. We must read, we must understand, we must question, and above all, I believe we should listen. We are also required to follow the federal laws, the state laws, and the town codes. Much of the town codes, and I've been a public official since '79, were written based upon experiences and technologies from the 1950s and 60s. Obviously, there should be some updates. There's not going to find anything about your technology within the codes. Mr. Garino, am I correct in assuming that we are obligated to follow the town codes on this item as they are available on the Orangetown website?
Yes, I'm not sure which you're referring to.
Just generally, okay.
The question is about the zoning issue?
The whole thing that's on there. I assume that's the current law, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure that many residents are uncomfortable with this application and would be substantially less, okay. I am sure that many residents are uncomfortable with this application and would be less worried, upset, frightened, etc., if this application was not approved. Ultimately, we are required to follow our enabling legislation, as this truly defines our responsibilities. And in the wisdom of the town government at that time, I think they came out with a pretty good definition of what the planning board should do. And from 21A-1, in order to ensure that the proposed development and use of land within the town of Orangetown will have a harmonious relationship with the existing permitted use of contiguous land and of adjacent neighborhoods, and so as to ensure the health, safety, welfare, comfort, my emphasis, and convenience of the public is fully considered, this local law is hereby enacted pursuant to the provisions of 274-A of the state law of the state of New York, town law of the state of New York. Merriam-Webster defines comfort, noun, a state of feeling or being less worried, upset, and frightened. Upon this justification and other legitimate concerns, I don't think we should inflict this on the company, on this community. I feel obligated, because of the precedence this will set, that at this time on this application, by that justification, I will vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dell. Thank you, Mr. Dell.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Bond. Mr. Bond.
My main concern was the same one I expressed at the last meeting, is that we have, some additional monitoring put in place by an independent. My main concern, which I stated at the last meeting, is that we have some additional monitoring put in to monitor this project, that we have control over, somebody that we hire as the town. and that we control, and we're going to see the results just to go above and beyond. My name is Bruce Bond. Bruce, you want to move a little closer to? Okay. My main concern is that well, that's not much I could do about that, if you can't hear me. Okay. My main concern is that we have additional monitoring put in place to ensure that the limits that the company's putting out are below what's allowed by law. And just, that's my main concern, so.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Mr. Warren?
I think Mr. Bond has expressed my concerns too in respect to continuous monitoring. I think Allen Tech has done an excellent job, their presentation. I think what Mr. Bond says is kind of my feeling, that I'm looking for continuous monitoring. I think Allen Tech has done an excellent presentation and job, and hopefully the project will move on.
Thank you, Mr. Warren.
Can everybody hear me?
Mr. Sweeney?
I'm not going to delay this meeting further by repeating what's been said. I wanted to thank the applicant for their presentation, and I'm going to take Mr. Dell's advice and listen to what everyone has to say when they speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Mandel?
Yes, good evening. I do concur with Mr. Dell regarding some of the things. This is in the residential area. What if something major happening? And I concur with the statements regarding the town law regarding comfort. I would just ask everybody tonight, we've received a couple of letters, one of which just about threatens us. Hopefully when you come up tonight, your statements will not be of the threatening nature, because other actions should be taken on those. Questions, and some of these questions, as I said last time, are based upon letters received from the public. Have you submitted the permit application for the RD&D that is bringing in waste products for biomass fuel, the DEC 360 form to the DEC?
Yes, hi, I'm Melanie Golden, and I'm with Environmental Management Limited, and I'm an environmental consultant for Tech. And I am pleased to say that after numerous pre-application meetings and requests for materials, we submitted an application. It went in yesterday morning, and just so that you know what the process is, the DEC will get back to us shortly to let us know. They requested very specific information, and then they let us know if they need additional information, and then that application is deemed complete for review. And the process is such that there will be public comment on that application, and Tech actually requested to have a legislative hearing on the application, which means that in addition to providing public comments, comments in writing from the public or anyone here, that there will also be a legislative public hearing, it's called, where it will be held locally, and the public and anyone is entitled to come in and speak as to that permit application to determine whether it should be granted or denied, or what permit conditions there should be. And so, like many of you, I have sat on a planning board for many years, and so it's very common that the approval is contingent on getting the approval, the permit that's required from the appropriate agency. And so nothing done here tonight will preclude the public from having any kind of input into that application.
Okay, so that application was just placed in yesterday. Was all the information required by the DEC been supplied to the DEC?
We believe that we provided them with what they needed. So you know, I know that you've gotten information that the DEC has been understaffed, and at the last meeting, there were 9 DEC members present there, including the regional director, representatives from Air Materials Management, and they provided us, there were also permitting officials, hazardous waste staff, and they provided us with a list after that, and that meeting was held at the end of March, with information that they wanted in this application. And we believe that we've submitted what they requested, and they will get back to us, we're hoping next week, to let us know if we need to submit anything more, and then that application, there is a process where it's deemed complete. So we think that we did give them, and as I said, as I think Mr. Sorensen said, it is for Woodflower. It's a research development and demonstration permit application, and it is for Woodflower, which would be for the first year. It goes by the year for that kind of permit. And then it would be as well corn stover and sugar bagasse, which could follow.
Okay, at the March 11th meeting, in response to my questions, that's a type of biomass to be used as fuel, you stated wood flour for the first year. Then you quoted, if something's going to change, we have to get a DEC permit, and the town will be notified. As per New York State DEC Deputy Regional Permit Administrator, Division of Environmental Permits, in an email dated 3/24/15, DEC does not issue permits for specific feedstock conversion to biofuel. Please explain your answer since it's in conflict with the DEC.
Can you fit, it's conversion to biofuel. So for our research and development project, what happens is they specifically ask us what biomass we're using. That goes into the application. And what we've described to them is very accurate. The first year is wood flour. There can be, we have to ask for a renewal because the way that RD&D permits work is it gets renewed every year up to a maximum of 3 additional times. We did express to them that we expect at the end of the first year to ask for a renewal that will include, it will be wood flour for the first 6 months. That's what we expect, but it will also allow, at that point, to allow for corn stover and sugar bagasse. So based on what we have and what we submitted, I've been at the meetings with the 9 members of the DEC, and they specifically said what will happen is the permit itself will define, and we had to give a lot of detail as to how we're going to handle that biomass, what kinds of procedures we have to make sure everything is authorized, what kinds of security, there's a lot of different things. So
Your
that's all I
permit
can
is,
say.
the permit is for transportation of waste.
It's
That's
not
what
for
it is. It's a waste
it's
management
not.
permit. 6 NYC RR Part 360.
Right, it's a materials management Part 360 permit, and the materials that will be identified in our specific
Is what you're going to be
permit
bringing into the location.
is what's going to come in, and
Okay,
those are
at
the
prior
3.
meetings, I kept asking what you're going to be using. All I got was wood flour. Now we say it's first year wood flour, then it's going to be the sugarcane byegrass and
Corn stover,
corn stover.
correct.
Why wasn't that put in? Now it's down to 6 months, then it's going to come in. So the answers keep changing. Why weren't they?
What
directly?
happens is,
Could you please keep it down? Can you
Yes.
please keep it down?
what happens is in all research and all planning, there are definitely changes and things that go from the beginning of the research in the university to the laboratory. And from the beginning of this process, I think that we really did identify those 3 items as the items that we would be interested in the R&D facility. That's what was brought to me, and that's what I think in the materials that we've submitted, we've identified those 3, and we can say categorically that those are the 3 biomass materials that would be used for this facility. And
For what period of time?
for the entire research and development project that we are, that we're working, the DS3 project.
Year 1 is wood flour. Year 2, the first half is wood flour. The second half would be stover or bagasse per what the DEC allowed us to do in the permit that we do have to renew on year 2. Year 3 would be stover and bagasse. That's the plan, and it's all laid out in the application.
Okay, which we
materials.
we don't have a copy of, so we have no knowledge as to what's in the application.
If you would like a copy, I mean, the complete application, which should be done in the next, few weeks, but if you want a copy of the application that was submitted, we can provide that. But yes, but I think that we made clear that those were the three, and in terms of the timing of it, Mr. Sorensen provided you with the specific timing that has been decided.
Thank you. Okay.
Excuse me. Can I ask what will be beyond year 3?
There are no plans for beyond year 3. This is to, and Chuck, Mr. Sorensen, you're probably a better person to describe what we expect to have in the year 3, and there will never be any kind of commercial production. And in fact, in the plan that went to the DEC, part of that is a decommissioning plan. So what happens is that the plan that was submitted says that at the end of this particular project, the equipment will be cleaned, everything is decommissioned in place, and that to the extent that there's ever in the future any research, small-scale research that would be used in the future, we would then have to approach and get permitting for whatever that would be. So this is really considered a 3-year project, and we can also dismantle. We had to put in a provision for dismantling all the equipment that's there, and so the building itself would be gone, including the walls and the equipment within it. So that's part of what's there.
And if that changes, you'll have to come back to us.
Correct.
So this is a
Okay.
research and development program. The idea is to get the work done and then get something commercial. So we're looking to develop technology that'll be licensed to people that will build commercial plants in other parts of the U.S. and other parts of the world where there's a lot of biomass.
Okay.
So that's it. There will continue to be an R&D group working at Pearl River site, but they won't be using this DS3 unit.
The worldwide headquarters for Nelitech would remain here, their administrative offices as well.
Okay, well, further on. On January 14, 2015, research engineer Colin Schmidt in a video described the process. At the 44-second mark, the video shows Mr. Schmidt referring to biomass fuel, which included newsprint. Do you intend to possibly amend your application in the future to include newsprint or some other biofuel?
No.
Okay, at the September 10th meeting and subsequent meetings, you were asked about the emissions. In substance, you listed BTX, CO2, CO, and some minor hydrocarbons. In the full environmental assessment form, you mentioned methane, a hydrocarbon resulting from the process will be oxidized, converted to CO2 and water. However, in your letter dated 4/21/15, under air emissions, page 4, you listed methane as an emission and stated approximately 2 tons or 4,000 pounds would be emitted. Why was methane emitted in the prior answers when it was asked for? Will it be, partially oxidized within the in the system? Some is partially emitted, and how much methane is produced overall in the process?
In the long form, the environmental assessment form, we show that the methane at the maximum potential to emit, which will not be achieved in practice, we rounded that number up to 2 tons a year. The methane is a byproduct of the process, and it is consumed in the catalytic oxidizer, not as much as BTX, not to the same destruction efficiency. Normally, methane is not a regulated constituent. So that's why we didn't talk about it earlier.
But was asked, what else was in there, and it isn't, it can't explode, it is a gas.
Not at these concentrations, no, it's well below the explosive limit.
Okay, so in other words, it's partially burnt up in the process and partially, and with some emissions.
It's substantially burned up in the process by the catalytic oxidizer with some emissions, correct, which we listed on the long form.
Okay. What's the source of the methane?
Biomass.
The biomass itself? Okay. In the same January 14 video previously mentioned, Mr. Smith describes the process as similar to or akin to the FCC, or fluid catalytic cracking, that was used in 1942. It also used the regeneration of the catalyst for high thermal efficiency. In your process, the use of catalyst is covered in carbon or coke, depending on your, whatever you're using, but it's not coke, you say it's carbon.
Coke is in this context, is a term used by catalyst scientists and engineers to describe a carbon deposit on the catalyst.
Okay, so, okay.
It's
Now-
not any kind of a product of any sort.
Okay, and that's sent to the regenerator, where air is used to oxidize the carbon off the catalyst?
That's correct,
Okay, and that's at temperatures between 11 and 1,300 degrees approximately?
approximately.
Okay, all right. Then if I'm correct here, the methane is sprayed with water, and as a result, the CO2 is produced?
The,
And then used as a source of energy?
no, I'm not sure, sprayed with water.
All right, well,
in-
okay, you have you'll have your carbon. That carbon then turns into methane, am I correct on that?
No, the methane is formed in the reactor by the conversion of the biomass along with BTX, so it's one of the side products, if you will,
Okay,
from the conversion of biomass. It becomes, it's in the emitted gas stream, but it goes through the catalytic oxidizer. It's very similar to what happens in your automobile. Automobiles emit methane and go through a catalytic oxidizer, and you still have some methane emissions after in the tailpipe.
okay. This one, another question with the emissions. Is there any ethylene or ethylene oxide produced as a result? Any emissions?
There's a very small amount of ethylene produced, less on the order of ppms. There's absolutely no ethylene oxide produced. It's impossible in this process.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Naltec made a presentation to the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council on July 16, 2014. On slide 4, under non-food biomass, you list MSW, which is municipal solid waste and recycled plastics. And on slide 8, you infer this would help the region under project benefits, that is waste disposal. Now, I know you said you are not going to use it, but do you intend to amend your application, or do you plan at any future time to burn that at the plant in the Pfizer complex located in Orangetown and Clarkstown?
No.
Okay. Just again, this is a question from the public. On the same presentation, slide 7, you list operational hours as 24/7, and on page 13, Q2164 of your New York State Consolidated Funding application, you state 3 shifts, 24/7. Is this the maximum? Is this what's going to be used, or was your explanation from last time still the same as to, is it 24/7, 365? Because the way the application is written, it sounds like that.
In calculating the maximum potential to emit, which is how the DEC bases their analysis, you're required to assume that you operate 365 days a year. That's the maximum potential to emit. In practice, since this is an R&D operation, it will be less than that. But when the unit is running, it will be running 24 hours a day.
How long will the unit be running? Do you have any idea? At the 24-hour-a-day time frame?
I think over the course of this project, which is the period of time, it'll be operating 24 hours for periods of time. That's correct.
What periods of time? A day, a month, a year?
Doug?
We could potentially operate the unit for several months at a 24/7 pace. I don't envision, we have no plans to run it continuously. As Dave said, for 365 days a year, we will need to shut it down. There's different things that we'll need to do to the unit and restart it.
Okay, the catalytic oxidizer that's going to be used by your company, who's the manufacturer?
It's made by a company called Falmouth Engineering, and I think
Nice.
we provided to the zoning board detailed information on that device.
Okay. What's the life expectancy on that unit?
It's years. It's just like your catalytic converter on your car. These things can go for 10-plus years.
Right, but, okay. Now, the oxidizer will it perform at the same rate of efficiency, 98 or 99.5%, depending on whether we're using maximum or whatever, during the full period of the life expectancy, or it will slowly lose its ability to perform at that level throughout its life expectancy, as sometimes we see with the catalytic converter on vehicles?
That's something we will monitor that.
So it's unknown at this point in time?
It's unknown at this point, but I will say that the model that we've chosen, the quantity that we're sending to this model is on the extreme low end of its design range. So from that perspective, it's way over designed for the job that's being asked of it. And the benefit and outcome of that is that it should have very long longevity.
I should note that in the DEC, in their letter report, noted that the technology is proven to be very reliable since its introduction in 1975. So this is very old technology, and
It's
very
40 years old, so I was wondering if there's something,
I think they figured out the bugs by now.
yeah, hopefully, or they've come up with something new. Monitoring of emissions, you stated it's a continuous monitoring at the delta T across the unit that's changes in temperature?
That's correct.
Okay. What other variables besides temperature are used as part of the testing process?
The concentration of hydrocarbons going to the unit itself is one of the main variables, but we measure all of that as part of our routine work that we do as part of our entire research and development activity. It's embedded or inherent in the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
We're collecting that, in other words, we're collecting that data anyways. It's part of our primary objective.
Okay. How often will the monitoring take place?
The monitoring, the delta T monitoring is continuous. I think we mentioned last time it's done on a frequency of once per second. The chemical analysis information is taken several times a day.
Okay. What testing will be done to determine the exact amount of BTX being emitted into the atmosphere? Is that done on, would that be done at all? And if so, is it a daily, weekly, or a monthly basis?
Normally, normally what's done is there's an initial calibration, if you will, or initial performance demonstration of the catalytic oxidizer to prove out its destruction efficiency. Then the temperature change or the delta T monitoring is used as a routine and continuous monitoring. And then periodic checks can be made on the performance. If it's an industrial facility, maybe once a year.
Okay, so then the chemical concentration of, will then it be once a year? It'd be based, compared to the initial calibration?
Well, first of all, the emissions from the device are exceedingly low. They're extremely difficult to measure because they're already so low. So the measurement equipment using the EPA methods is already going to be challenged to actually pick up any sort of signal whatsoever. Generally speaking, the catalytic oxidizers are regarded as so reliable that there aren't any regulations on the EPA in terms of frequency of performance checking.
Okay, so something could possibly happen, and the chemicals might possibly get through.
Well, the thing is, you'll see it on your temperature change. You'll see it right away.
Okay. That's all I have at this point in time, but I reserve the right to ask questions again. based upon what we hear from the public.
Thank you, Mr. Mandel. Okay, now is the time for the public to come out and speak. I have a list of the people who signed in, and as I said at the beginning of this meeting, if you didn't sign in and you wish to speak, you can do so, but we'll go through the list first. It's a 3-minute limit, no more. Once the 3 minutes is up, I will gavel you, and the next person will come up. Okay. Thank you. First up is Mr. David Mendenhall. Big Tasty. I'm sorry, sir. There are no props. You can come up to the thing and speak, sir. Thank you. I'm sorry. State your name and your address for the record, please.
David Mendenhall, 13 Parkside Court, Pomona. I am a PhD level chemist. I've worked with BTX and related chemicals since around 1957 or so. I never thought of BTX as particularly dangerous. Benzene, the only examples of problems I can cite are World War I, a ship carrying benzene was bombed and the people were rescued from the ocean soaked in benzene and had long-term health problems. The only other example I know of is a filling station had a parts washing bucket or great big container, and this, it was either gasoline or gasoline equivalent, and one of the filling station workers got leukemia. Now, in a situation like this, you're exposed to the material. Gasoline has about 1% benzene in it, and if you're inhaling this on a daily basis, you can run into problems. I guess I would advise everyone here not to use gasoline to wash tar off of your hands or fingers, as I used to do when I was young and immortal. In general terms, I think everyone is influenced by Silent Spring by Rachel Carlson. However, she was not a technical person, and even reading it in high school, I thought a lot of the stuff was far-fetched. However, those are the areas when the Cuyahoga River caught fire, and there were no restrictions whatever on putting stuff into the environment. I think we've gone to the point where it's gone to the other extreme, where you can go down to Lowe's and buy a gallon of toluene and slather it on some wood and use it as paint remover. But if some company doing something worthwhile has a 3-inch smokestack with a part per trillion of toluene coming out, that the public has to be concerned. The concentrations put out by this company are below what I define as the humbug limit. The humbug limit is the concentration of anything in the environment such that the actual physical effects are just equal to the effects of worrying about it. If you worry about something, your blood pressure comes up, and if you Google blood pressure versus mortality, you can actually presumably calculate the excess deaths that you are going to achieve by worrying over a part per billion of something in the environment.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up is Mr. Brian Canoon. C-O-N-O-O-N. That's how it's spelled.
My handwriting is very bad. I apologize. My name is Brian Condon, C-O-N-D-O-N, and I am the attorney for the Stop Inelitech movement and many of the people that you see back here in this room. I have an office at 55 Old Turnpike Road, Suite 502, Nanuet, New York. The one thing I'd ask you to do, Mr. Chairman, to correct the record, as you said earlier, you didn't give the dates that the EAF were submitted by Inelitech, and you also did not give the dates that Part 2 and Part 3 were submitted by the town. I would just ask at your convenience to read that into the record, because I do think dates are important.
Thank you, Mr. Condon, and thank you for pointing it out to me very, very politely. I wish that other people in the audience would do the same thing. I'll give him a couple more seconds, ma'am.
Also, too, I'd like to thank Mr. Dell. There's a gentleman by the name of Ken Cully who was here at the very beginning. He was patient zero, so to speak. And the room that you see today is very different than the room that you saw half a year ago. These people are concerned. And maybe gentlemen from Pomona are not concerned, but this is our neighborhood. And things And things in the air affect people. And what I would say is there's some legal arguments that have been made, and I'll let others talk about the practical matters. This community came up with zoning back in the 50s and the 60s. They didn't anticipate the world of today. There are zones that certain uses are allowed. We submit that this use, the R&D use that's been kind of shoved down our throat, R&D, not manufacturing, is not allowed in the LI zone. There are zones, the LO zone, the LIO zone, where research, laboratory uses are allowed. It says manufacturing as a use of right. They're not manufacturing. They've told us they're not manufacturing. The LI zone does not permit them to do what they're doing. I just wanted to make sure that the board is aware of that. I've been in touch with your counsel, both Mr. Magrino and Mr. Michaels, very nice gentlemen, very competent attorneys. We can agree to disagree. However, you as a board need to take a long, hard look. We use the word a hard look in SECRA. You need to look at the zoning. You need to look at how this independent, I don't mean to correct Mr. Soldowski, but he keeps using the word DEC report. We have a letter that the DEC said it's not a report. It was a letter. It was a jurisdictional letter. And they keep sending out flyers saying it's a report. It wasn't a report. I also have concerns with regards to the independent nature. As an attorney, I'm not supposed to be improper, but I'm also not to give the impression of impropriety. Chairman Sullivan communicated directly with Triumvirate, the independent agency, and he told them in an email what he wanted them to say. I'm not saying it was inappropriate, but it certainly smacks of the impression of impropriety. Also, one other thing, ZBA member Frioldi, Leonard Frioldi. There's a gentleman at Triumvirate whose last name is Frioldi. It's not Smith, it's not Jones. If I could have 30 seconds.
Go ahead, Mr. Conlon.
And again, I'm not saying there's a connection, but when we raised that to the town in their papers with regards to Chairman Sullivan's issues of contacting them directly and any kind of familial relationship between the two gentlemen, the Triumvirate representative and Mr. Frioldi, what I got back in response was pure speculation of why these people did not have the right to sue in the Article 78 action. No mention was made substantive. I still don't have an answer. Are they related, or is Chairman Sullivan's actions proper? I would ask you to reconsider, and if nothing else, table this again. There are gentlemen that are waiting for information. Mr. Young has still not got information. We would ask, there's no rush to approve this tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Conlon. Next up is Mr. William Bahari.
I'm Dr. William S. Bahari. Good evening, Mr. Garvey and the board.
Mr. Bahari, can you please give your address for the record?
291 North Middletown Road, Pearl River, New York.
Thank you.
I am an industrial chemist with an AB in chemistry from Harvard and a PhD in chemistry from Columbia University, with decades of professional experience working with synthetic rubber, benzenoids, batteries, and many toxic chemicals at various companies. I've also taught at college and university level. The project. We can all appreciate the importance and potential benefits of the Anotech project to make benzenoid chemicals from green biomass. However, I must emphasize the immediate health risks of benzene, toluene, and xylene, BTX, that is not green and will not be produced, that will be produced by the Anotech process. Benzene. Benzene is the sixth most toxic substance after arsenic, lead, mercury, and is toxic at just a few parts per billion in air. Benzene is carcinogenic, can cause leukemia, and can damage the liver, the immune system, and the nervous system. If 80 grams of benzene, which is less than half a cup, is released into the air, it will make 1 square mile, having a layer of 5 feet deep, to humans toxic. 80 grams is a very tiny amount of the BXT that will be made in 1 day. Criticality of emissions. The patented process of Anotech includes a pyrolysis chamber, something like a pressure cooker, and the distillation of waste waters and the final product in a system that is open to the atmosphere. The system relies on catalytic converters to remove pollutants before being emitted into the air when 132 pounds of BXT are made per day. An environmental report claims that about only 0.074 pounds of toxic chemicals will be emitted per day. At present, it is not known if the emission values were independently verified and confirmed, so they are open to question. Benzene is too toxic to allow any room for error. The emission numbers should be verified and tested and confirmed to the satisfaction of the community before the project is allowed to go forward. The emissions are a criticality here. The smokestack. A 100-foot smokestack or vent pipe visible from many miles away, spewing chemicals in the air presents perception as well as the reality of being lethally risky to the town people. Furthermore, the toluene was an offensive odor.
Thank you, Mr. Bahari. Next is Mr. Emil Bahari.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Your address,
and board.
please.
I'm Emil Bahari, 291 North Middletown Road, Pearl River. I have a master's in business and PhD in engineering, both from Columbia University. However, I find the analytic reports confusing and conflicting, and I cannot tell what analytic is saying, but what I infer from these documents is that their project is likely to be bad for our health and bad for our property values. Analytech tries to comfort us by saying that emissions are safe. In fact, safer than automobiles. We just heard that. That their gases pass through catalytic converters, and like those in automobiles, pass only harmless carbon dioxide and water into the air. In another part of the report, they claim that cars which have catalytic converters emit 1/4 pounds of benzene per hour. Now, which is it? Do the converters clean air emissions or not? In other words, the benzene emission levels they claim to be safe may in fact be toxic. Data from the American Cancer Society shows that, I quote, even a tiny amount of increased carcinogens in the air pollution significantly increases the risk of lung cancer. Accidents, they can happen. In a mature industry, railroads, there were 19 accidents just a few months ago, within the last few months, 6 of them involving hazardous waste. But that is a mature industry. This business is a startup, and we know that accidents can happen. Can they guarantee that it will not happen? If 1 foot of cubic of benzene gas, as I said, escapes in the atmosphere, it will require a volume of equal to 1 square mile by 10 feet of air just to make that dilute enough to be safe. Economic impact. Persistent strong odors will depress property values. While Analytic in their application checked no odors in their that would be happening. But in another document, they report that it will emit 10 pounds of toluene each year, but it could be much more. Toluene smells at 8 parts per million. 10 pounds per year amounts to about 0.03 pounds a day. That is equivalent to 1 cubic inch of liquid toluene emitted each day. That does not seem like much, does it? But that is 16 times the volume that a skunk squirts each time in its own defense. 1 squirt of the skunk can be smelled 1 mile downstream. So we're going to endure the equivalent of 16 skunk squirts or more of toluene each day, every day for 365 days a year.
Thank you, Mr. Bahari. Mr. Riley, James Riley.
James J. Riley, 145 Franklin Avenue, Pearl River, New York. Good evening. Happy Earth Day to everybody here. 15 years ago today, Mr. Chairman, I was in Sloan Kettering. at Sloan Kettering, I saw a lot of kids, a lot of children. Many of those children had leukemia. Benzene causes leukemia. With all respects to Mr. Mendenhall, read the 2015 book, Tom's River. The Tom's River, a leukemia cluster developed as a result of out of event, not 75,000 barrels in the ground, out of event. Leukemia causes cancer in children, fetuses and up to 5 years old especially, cause you have exponential cell growth. Gasoline is everywhere, Mr. Sadowski, with all due respects. I don't think you can find a community in America without gasoline. We all agree on that. Benzene production is nowhere. Nobody wants to produce benzene. And benzene is not 25%. BXD is 25%. You cannot have more than 1.2% benzene in gasoline in the winter, I believe, and 6.6, 0.6% in summer. We have zoning in this town. We have a legacy of zoning in this town that we would keep out glue factories. Naphtha production. Naphtha, if you look closely, is benzene. No matter what the benzene comes from, whether it's petroleum, crude, or wood stock, or flour, or municipal waste, it is benzene, and it is cancerous, and it is toxic, and it doesn't belong in this town. No research is allowed in this zone. I'm preposterous. No research is allowed in this zone. I beg you, Mr. Giardello, with all due respects, can examine the code, but you can read the code. Research is not a permitted use in an LI zone. How that happened, I have no idea, but that's the law. We have to protect this town. We have to keep the legacy of zoning and planning in this community. And I think all of you are at a loss as to how we could be bringing benzene production into this community when 0.3 parts per billion are carcinogenic, mutagenic, tetragenic, poisonous, toxic. Please, you can refer this back to the town board under Section 271. You can table it, or with all due respects, I think you should deny this. It is against the character of this residential community. Go down to Gulfport, Louisiana. The houses are 220 miles away, 20 miles away. And it is against the character of the community. I asked you to look at the case law, and as I mentioned last time, in the environmental process, long-form environmental, we have the right to be frightened. We have the legally right to be frightened, whether it is for real or perceived. It reduces real estate prices and it destroys this site. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kathleen Kelly. Thank you.
Dr. Kathleen Kelly, 18 Van Buren Street, Pearl River, New York. Good evening, Chairman Garvey, Mr. Dell, Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Bond, Mr. Warren, Mr. Mandel, and Mr. Young. I come here again today to express my deep concerns regarding the proposed Anelitech project to occur on the Pfizer site. If we have learned anything in these last few months, we have learned that monitoring of emissions is a reactive process. If it comes out in your monitoring, it has already happened. Prior to the meeting, an incident occurred where another mother in the room was concerned of the safety of her child. Mrs. Sadowski saw something in a bucket next to her, and she immediately removed her son. As a mother, I applaud her, and we had a special moment together. I have the same concerns when I think about the Anelitech project. You didn't know what was in the bucket. I don't know what is in your stack. And my children, I'm as concerned, but I can't move my children out of the seat here when it is coming out into the air. On 9/11, as opposed to what my gentleman friend over here said, I can think of a lot of reasons when benzene caused cancer. 9/11 had the largest benzene exposure to our neighborhood. Thousands of people have leukemia as a result of that. And do you want to know why Christine Todd Whitman told us the air was safe? Because the monitors were on the roof and the benzene was in the dust. Because benzene is heavier than air, it will drop to the ground. Mr. Bahari, Dr. Bahari told us that, And when it drops to the ground, it will fall on our grass, it will fall on our water surface. Our barefoot children in our yards will be playing on that grass. And think about everyone who puts things in their mouth, toddlers, out in the yard. This is going to be a problem. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has ambient air monitors in place. As our board of record, who are going to be making decisions and assuring our safety, I would like to bring into the record here that there was a class action suit filed by the first responders of the World Trade Center against the Environmental Protection Agency. This is now a precedent due to false assurances of safety without the appropriate information and safety data to be available. Chairman Garvey, I would like to ask you, where is the closest monitor in Rockland County for monitoring for benzene? I'll tell you where it's not, the one in Pomona that people think are going to be monitoring with us.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Next up is Amy Wortham.
Amy Wertheim, 111 South Main Street, Pearl River, New York. Good evening, members of the Planning Board and all in attendance. I've lived in Pearl River for the past 31+ years. It is Earth Day. Please note its significance. Why are we all here tonight? If I may be so blunt, if the town of Orangetown's boards had done their due diligence from the inception of this application to tonight's meeting, none of us would have had to spend nearly 8 months doing research to find out exactly what Inelitech is all about. Your jobs are to do what is legal and right for the town of Orangetown, to protect the health and safety of the residents first, and to bring thriving business and more jobs to our town. Inelitech's plan is to erect a chemical reactor smack in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Their plan is to take biomass and somehow make it green. And while they are doing it, they will emit benzene, toluene, and xylene into our air in quantities that are not acceptable, period. Inelitech's plan is to build here, expand and create a total of another 13 jobs that will not be had by any Rockland resident, let alone a resident from Orangetown. We have a pending DEC FOIL request for the redacted emissions information that Inelitech deems to be a trade secret. The DEC is waiting on Inelitech's proof of such trade secret. As the lead agency for this application, I would like to ask each one of you to explain to the audience your understanding of what Inelitech's process is and what their end product will be. You have had 8 months to read over every piece of information that we have collectively given you, and it would make sense that at this point, you would all know what Inelitech is doing. What do each of you want monitored? The emissions have the potential for 40 other toxins to be admitted, not just benzene, toluene, and xylene, yet a full disclosure of what exactly those emissions are has not been submitted by this company. Please look into the audience at the men, women, and children who fear that the planning board will allow Inelitech into our neighborhood to poison our air. The decision that you make tonight will be your legacy for years and years to come. As lead agency, you do have the power to make the only decision that is right for Orangetown. Stop Inelitech and be our heroes.
Thank you. Next up is Heather Hurley.
Heather Hurley, 202 Hobart Street, Pearl River. Good evening, Planning Board members. Questions remain about this company, their process, the emissions, the biomass, and other matters which renders making a decision to approve this application tonight irresponsible. Unless employees of Inelitech, including CEO David Sudolsky and lead engineer Chuck Sorensen, and not a consultant, answer each and every one of the outstanding questions that have not been answered up until now, then the only duty you all have to the people of this community is to either deny this application entirely or postpone your decision until each and every question is answered. Daniel Whitehead, New York State DEC Regional Permit Administrator, informed me this morning that Anelitech submitted an application to obtain a Part 360 permit, but conveniently, Anelitech filed it yesterday afternoon, when this specific permit process has been active since January 2015, making it impossible for a FOIL request to obtain that information by tonight. Every member of this planning board should review that application before approving anything. Also obtained in a FOIL request is a list of 22 items that the DEC wanted attached to the Part 360 permit. Some of these questions include description of feed of wastes to be handled initially and proposed, quantities, sources, adulterated versus unadulterated, when will feedstock change, other, how unauthorized waste will be handled and managed, hours of operation, residues, where the storage amounts and locations for both feeds and product and waste, what is currently occurring at this site, they want to know, contingency plan, the goal at the end of the first year, and what were the answers to these questions that Anelitech provided. On their consolidated funding application to the Regional Council, Anelitech lists municipal solid waste and recycled plastics as biomass source. This biomass feedstock must be accounted for when answering the New York State DEC items. Other questions which were raised at the March 11th meeting is who their suppliers of biomass are. This question must be answered before rendering a decision. They have already submitted a false MSDS sheet for sawdust to the town of Orangetown from a company that has never heard of them, nor sells to them. We need to know where their biomass supply is coming from. Also stated by this company on their application, Anelitech answers small-scale manufacturing, yet all along they have stated and insisted to the public that it is not manufacturing, only R&D. Yet Mr. Sadulski just stated in his presentation that there will never be manufacturing here. Who is Anelitech lying to? Anelitech also states that they will increase scale of process in the form of a pilot plant, yet what they're applying for is a pilot plant if you look at the quantities of BTX that they will be manufacturing. Do not approve this plan and put my child and my family's health and safety at risk. There are too many risks, and no amount of benefits could trump those risks. Do not be pressured into thinking that this is what you must do. It is not what you must do.
Next up is Denise Shorn.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Denise Shorn, Pearl River, New York. The DEC has determined that this facility will be a solid waste facility. Hello? Sorry. Okay. The DEC.
Start again.
Sorry. The DEC has determined that this facility will be a solid waste facility that requires a solid waste permit. This makes sense because from what we've heard all along is that it will be waste in, chemicals out. This entire business, of which we have never had before on the Pfizer campus, is using and producing waste and hazardous materials. What will they be using as a biomass source? They've changed their story to suit the audience. Still, any of these wastes require special care in evaluating air pollution and human exposure implications. As part of their 360 permit application, the DEC requires that they give a description of the feed waste initially and proposed. They want quantities and sources, and if the wood is adulterated or unadulterated. They also ask for a timetable for when that feedstock changes. They met with the DEC on 3/19, yet just yesterday applied for this permit. Will their biomass be adulterated or unadulterated? Will it contain construction and demolition waste? We don't know if their corn will be saturated by pesticides or herbicides, or will it be, as they indicated in their presentation, plastics and municipal waste? Why can't we have access to the same information the DEC requires before making a smart, educated decision about whether this belongs in the center of our town? I am requesting that you wait for the 360 permit application to be made available to the public. There will be 15 days of public notice and the opportunity for a hearing. This is very important because on the long form, they show that they will have the potential to process over 32,000 pounds of biomass a month. Also, did the emissions data that was provided include emission data from all of the multiple sources that they now say they're going to use? Corn, sugar, wood. municipal waste and plastics, which they say now that they're not going to use, but present that as a possible biomass. And where is the evidence that pesticides on agricultural products are, quote, washed or burned away, as suggested at the last meeting, when the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority recommends that emission testings of clean MRF fuels should include tests for 19 pesticides, 12 of which are designated probable or possible carcinogens by the EPA, including DDT, and 9 herbicides, 3 of which are possible or probable carcinogens. Any emissions monitoring should include such testing. On their website, the DEC states biofuel can be a source of air pollution, saying biofuel air pollution is not yet fully understood. Yet bringing in more companies like Inelitech is exactly what representatives from the Regional Economical Council are not only recruiting, but paying to come to the Pfizer campus. They're taking state money to reward companies to come in and make poison, and they've stated that they will expand on the campus if successful, and then will proceed from a pilot plant to a demo plant. What is your vision for the future of our town? There's a lot of vacant space, and Inelitech is first in line. What other companies will move in
Thank you.
next to a chemical company?
Next up is Joe Shorn.
Good evening. My name is Joe Shorn. I'm at 204 Hobart Street in Pearl River, New York. Thank you, members of the Planning Board, for your time. I hope you can now see why this is bad for our town. I just want to make a few key points. I'll try to keep it quick. First, I know town codes have come up, and I think we all can agree. I think Inelitech is definitely violating a number of our town codes. And I just want to remind you of, again, Section 4.42 of the Town of Orangetown zoning laws, which prohibits the reduction and processing of wood pulp and fiber. I believe that wood flour probably falls into that category quite neatly. And also Section 4.41, which also expressly prohibits the manufacture of coke and tar products. I think that also applies in this context. Secondly, I don't think anybody here really believes this is an R&D facility, because they're suggesting they're going to be doing about 2 tons of carcinogenic BTX a month. Any reasonable person can see, like, that is, they're manufacturing samples. Is that R&D? At that point, it's promotion. That's completely different. And also in their application to the Regional Council, they stated that they may also perform small-scale manufacturing. Also, as it's been said before, we do not know what they will be cooking. They keep changing their story over and over again. And there is no monitoring of what's going into the facility. Number 4, I'd also like to reiterate that we don't actually know what's coming out of the stack unless there's third-party monitoring, and who will be paying for that. I hope it's not us. And then I think this is also kind of interesting. What's the actual benefit to us? Inelitech only plans on creating 13 new jobs in 5 years, and they will only pay $58,000 in property taxes. Have you seen my tax bill? All right, now it gets even crazier. New York State is going to be giving them about $1 million of our tax money. How is that allowed? Why don't they give me the money? I'll do something nice with it. My kids would call that bucket dipping. And to the supposed pro-business community, I'm the owner of a small business. I have a software development company. Not in a million years would I think of moving my staff and my company into a facility with a BTX plant on the premises. If they want real, interesting, forward-looking development, how about thinking outside of the box into some other industries so we don't turn this into Elizabeth, New Jersey? And most importantly, the most important reason for turning this proposal down is out here in the audience. It's the thousands of signatures, all the signs, and all the people that have come out here tonight with kids and all the busy lives that we lead. We obviously do not want this. And I know you guys are going to do the right thing. I trust you guys. I think you're going to do the right thing and turn this down, because it really needs to be turned down. We don't want it. We don't need it. And we need to move beyond this into happier places. Thank you very much for your time.
Next up is Andy Stewart.
Good evening, members of the Planning Board, and also all of the townsfolk who are here to find out what determination will be made regarding Inelitech. As town supervisor, I've looked very carefully at this case, and most folks know I've spoken out at the zoning board at earlier planning board meetings in opposition, raising the same kinds of questions that have been raised by many people here, and I'm really glad to see members of the planning board ask them as well. I think that the planning board should have rescinded its negative declaration earlier. That declaration under seeker was made, unfortunately, prior to when a lot of this environmental information came out, because a lot of the environmental information relates to performance standards, which are reviewed by the zoning board. And we spoke to that question when we were at the zoning board. But I think the neg deck should have been rescinded, and I think tonight you should either oppose this or postpone the decision, especially given that there's more information coming in all the time. And specifically, to me anyway, there's at least two unresolved issues that are really important. One is the discussion of continuous monitoring here tonight has basically been a discussion of how Inelotech proposes to report. But the question I think most people are interested in is what kind of an independent report and monitoring would there be? It's all well and good for the process to be explained by the company itself, but I think that we need verification and we need some way of kind of tapping into that system and having someone on the outside say, yep, they're in compliance with their permit, and not just once a year or twice a year, but whenever it seems like it's a good idea to do that. Secondly, the long environmental assessment form comes up to about 46 pages or so. Some of that material was seen before, some of it's new. It came in, at least for public access anyway, this afternoon, and I think that that's reason right there not to make a final decision tonight. And I just want to reiterate, I don't think there's any other issue that's brought out this many people to town hall in many years. And the concern and anxiety in the community is palpable, and I think we all need to listen to that loud and clear and raise the questions and oppose this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Joanne McElligott.
Good evening. I'm losing my voice here. My name is Joanne McElligott, 85 Quake Lane, Pearl River, New York. Excuse me for losing my voice. I was ringing doorbells all last night, talking to as many people in Pearl River as I possibly could to let them know the truth of what's going on with Inelotech. Anyway, I would like to, at this time, tell you about a letter that was recently submitted to the Rockland Journal-News. And the title of that letter is called Inelotech Picks the Wrong Site. What should be asked about the Inelotech pilot plant proposal in Pearl River is why here, rather than what are the pollution levels? Why is this 18 to 36-month pilot study even being considered in a place where people live and work? And why is it being considered over the objections of many residents who are assumed to be ignorant of the facts? The convenience of using Pfizer and any considerations of profit do not outweigh the fact that benzene is a known carcinogen. I am not comfortable with the assurance that only small amounts of benzene will be released, along with xylene and toluene, or convinced there are safe levels, especially when the duration of the study is up to 3 years. Despite current guidelines, it is not proven that low levels of exposure to benzene have no effects. Even a quick internet search turns up other opinions. According to Nachman Brautbar, a board-certified internist and specialist in toxicology who cites an original 1948 American Petroleum Institute study, benzene is a hemotoxic at levels below 1 ppm, current workplace regulations, and there is no evidence of safe threshold levels when it comes to benzene exposure. According to the Center for Public Integrity, a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative news organization, our review of internal records reveals the petrochemical industry went to great lengths to rebut studies showing harmful effects of benzene in low doses. As others have said, let this study be performed elsewhere where it is appropriate, in a non-residential area. And this comes from Deborah Freed of Spring Valley, who is not a Pearl River or Nanuet resident. It is someone from right outside who is also concerned. And all I'm gonna say is, as a hockey fanatic, I'm missing the Ranger-Penguin game. You know damn well I am annoyed, and this is gonna stop tonight. Thank you.
Next up is Joe Simos.
Joe Simos, I'm the town planner for the town of Clarkstown, 10 Maple Avenue, New City. Thank you for having me here tonight. We're glad to hear that Anelotech has agreed to have air quality monitoring conducted by a third party, as we have suggested. However, we ask that some additional information be provided regarding monitoring, and I think you've heard some of it tonight. The information, first and foremost, the information on the firm providing the monitoring, the process by which they would be chosen. Secondly, information regarding the monitoring process itself should be provided. It would seem that monitoring should be conducted continually. That would provide better assurance to the safety of the facility's emissions rather than samples collected at specific instances. As was mentioned, this is not necessarily an industrial facility, it's R&D. So that means levels can change over time. It's not like it's going to continually emit the same quantities at all times. And we'd like to get information on how long the monitoring will be provided. The town has also been informed, as many of you, that the Part 360 permit has been submitted. We'd like a copy of that permit and all the pertinent information that's attached to it, and particularly with regards to the composition of the biomass handled at the site, and with regards to the potential contamination of pesticides or herbicides or any other chemicals. And also another thing that I think hasn't been mentioned yet is the waste products that would come out of this facility. We'd also like to reference a letter that we received dated April 2nd, 2015, from Brian Condon, which has already spoken, attorney for Stop Anelotech. He asked how this facility, which Anelotech has repeatedly stated is in its application as research and development, is permitted in the LI zoning district. While research and development uses are listed in a use table in the LO, they are not in the LI. Rather, the LI district is, as far as I can tell, allows manufacturing. So the concern here is, will this facility ultimately be manufacturing, since that is the use that appears to be an allowable use in this zoning district? Perhaps an agreement can be entered into the town to assure that there will be no manufacturing, but this question is still outstanding, and I think it needs to be answered. Lastly, as I heard tonight, a full EAF was submitted along with a Part 1 and Part 2, and really time should have been given or should be given to the public and interested and involved agencies in looking at that information. I've mentioned in letters and previous instances that really the board should issue or rescind their neg deck and really start the secret process over, and that's really would be the proper procedure in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Alex Gromack.
Good evening. My name is Alexander J. Gromack, Supervisor, Town of Clarkstown, business address 10 Maple Avenue, New City, New York, residence 23 Reginald Drive, Congers, New York. I want to thank the Planning Board for allowing this forum and for residents of Clarkstown to also speak out. Throughout this review process, the Town of Clarkstown has raised concerns over this project and has worked hard to provide our residents with the much needed information that they require as possible. We continue to firmly believe that the environmental review has not been properly conducted according to the State Environmental Review Act and lacks transparency to the process and has resulted in general distrust from the public. As such, we want to take this opportunity to again impress upon the board the concerns of our citizens and citizens like Ken Cully, Scott Panis, who have been so helpful to us as we've met many times to discuss this project and how it affects the residents of Nanuet and Clarkstown. Our residents feel, and I agree, that this is a use incompatible with the adjacent residential neighborhood and that the emissions generated by this facility have not been properly analyzed. The residents are justifiably concerned about the odors from the facility and the increased risk of cancer. Our residents, as well as the Town of Clarkstown, would also like the applicant to provide further information regarding the emission testing, consequences for surpassing the thresholds, and the nature of the biomass being processed, as well as whether the materials have been previously treated with pesticides and chemicals. We urge the board to commence a new secret review based upon a comprehensive understanding of the impacts of the project and a process that allows a full participation of the public. I have attended numerous meetings here in Orangetown, as well as many meetings with Clarkstown residents on this important matter. I am of the firm belief that this project is simply not an acceptable use in close proximity to a residential neighborhood and presents serious health risks. As public servants, we must remember our primary mission is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our residents that we serve. This project threatens those goals and should be rejected. Thank you.
Next up is Helen Shaw.
Good evening. My name is Helen Shaw, 260 East Central Avenue, Pearl River.
Can you use the microphone, please?
Sorry, I'm short. I have come here again tonight to question the financial prudence of allowing Inelitech to set up shop in Pearl River. According to Inelitech's consolidated funding application, Inelitech is currently paying $58,000 in property taxes. According to the same application, this number would grow to $75,000 if they were allowed to go forward with this expansion. Orangetown, by way of approval of Inelitech's petition, would be giving the right to emit BTX, a known carcinogen, into our air for a mere increase of $17,000. For this sum of $17,000, which is only slightly more than what I'm paying in taxes on my home, Orangetown and Clarkstown residents, especially those with homes surrounding the Pfizer campus, will take on the very real risks of the effect of BTX exposure, not to mention the biggest financial hit to their property values. We will also be at risk because of the highly flammable nature of the chemicals they will be working with, storing, and transporting. Let's face it, Inelitech is new at this. Admittedly, they are a startup company without a track record, uttering the words, "This is safe," over and over, but have yet to back up those statements with firm documentation. The community has had to fight tooth and nail to get the little information they have and have been forced to foil the lion's share of it. Yet Inelitech is asking us to trust them. I, for one, do not trust them one bit. Trust is earned, and in my opinion, they have not earned it. As I mentioned back in March, Springfield and Schenectady were the destinations for Inelitech back in 2010. 5 years later, they are here in Pearl River. Why are they not in those other towns and past the point where their technology is in the R&D phase? What has been happening for the last 5 years? Could the problem be that they couldn't find a community that wanted their business? Did these communities decide Inelitech was too much of a risk? What I am wondering, and my question to you, our planning board, is why we would risk the health and welfare of our community for a corporation that is not supported by town residents for a mere $17,000. Financially, it makes absolutely no sense. Fundamentally, it makes no sense. This is a bad investment, and I ask you tonight to deny Inelitech's petition for the sake of this community. Thank you.
Margaret Powers.
Good evening. Peggy Powers, 316 South Middletown Road. I'm new to this Inelitech game. I don't have near the knowledge of most of the people who've spoken. But having been to town boards throughout my 33 years in Orangetown, I continue to be disappointed with our inability as a town to decide who's responsible for what and where the bottom line responsibility lies. We continually, for 33 years, have had meetings about boards that somehow let something get to somewhere else. It's ridiculous. Secondly, in my opinion, town government represents the wants and needs of the town. The town is speaking clearly. You represent us. If you're not getting the message, something is really wrong. This town does not want this here. We should not have it here. It does not belong here. Lastly, I can't help but think this is a bait and switch. As an Orangetown resident, I've had personal experience with bait and switch adjacent to my property. I'm not the only one. I won't be the last one. It's time to wake up. It's real clear what's going on here. Everyone can see it except the members of the town boards. It's really, really unacceptable. It doesn't belong here. The people have spoken. Please listen to us. Please do what you're here to do.
Next up is Ken Cully.
How are you? My name is Ken Cully, 21 Nanuet Avenue, Nanuet, New York. First off, it's true, Mrs. Sandusky, that BTX's products are found on our shelves in our stores, but they are not produced under extreme heat in experimental, unproven processes in a residential neighborhood which exposes us to dangerous airborne chemicals, and that is what the issue is. Let me ask the town board, the planning board, who say we need more continuous monitoring. If we need more continuous monitoring for dangerous gases, carcinogenic gases that are being emitted into a residential neighborhood, then let me ask you, do we really need this project? Is this something we really need? And I also ask you as the planning board, what other location that you have approved in Orangetown requires continuous monitoring that in this state against dangerous chemical gases? I haven't heard of any, but maybe you can. Someone else out here spoke about an excellent presentation. I saw an excellent presentation that Inelitech did too, to the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council, where they requested $4,450,000 of my tax dollars. And on page 4, they bragged that their non-food biomass was MSW, municipal solid waste. On page 8, they talked about it again, that it was a waste stream reduction potential, plastics, MSW. Yet 3 months later, at the first meeting in front of your board, there was no mention of that. So let me ask you, who were they lying to? Were they lying to you? Were they lying to the Mid-Hudson Economic Development Council that thinks this is the greatest project because they don't live in our neighborhoods where we are? This is the thing. 3 months later, they did it. Every time we turn around, when we first started this thing, they were selling this. It was on their website. Someone came up and said, you can't sell it. Oh, no, we're not selling it. It's just R&D. Now today it comes out that L1, you can't have R&D. Tomorrow it'll be in manufacturing. They change the story every time. And it scares me for 2 reasons. One, they're the scientists. They can't figure out how to get this through the planning board. That scares me that I'm also give them the responsibility to produce cancer-causing gases that I'm supposed to be comfortable with. And number 2, that's the first thing that scares me. But number 2, it scares me, is that they keep lying. And they're the figures. They're giving the figures that people are studying. If they can't get this right, how can we believe the figures that they have produced? I am asking you, imploring with you, at least tonight, don't pass this thing. There's too many questions. The questions, these people have had fantastic comments, educated, well-written reports and stuff that they've come up with. Don't pass it tonight. Don't pass it at all, but don't pass it tonight. There's just too much going on here. Get someone independent that can really study this thing. If it's beyond your scope, I understand that. Have someone else do it. Study it. Don't rely on their figures. They change everything constantly. I'm asking you not to pass it. Thank you very much.
Wendy O'Reilly.
Good evening. My name is Wendy O'Reilly. I live at 8 Turner Road in Pearl River. Let me begin by saying, please listen to the citizens of this town when we are saying that we don't want an Elotech here. We live here and we have the basic human right to breathe clean air and drink clean water. As you are aware, many homeowners feel so strongly about this compromise to our health that we have already decided to move if this was approved. I urge you to be proactive and say no to Anelotech to protect our town from not only polluted air and water, but to the harmful effects which will take place if this were to be approved. Many homes up for sale is not good for Orangetown. It opens up the door to more problems. People will move away if they feel their town planning board doesn't support them. We do not want expansion at this Pfizer site. Not only is this an eyesore, but we do not welcome any new chemical plants into our town, not Anelotech or any other future chemical producing plant. Below federal limits is not good enough. Just like 9/11, they told us the air was safe. This will be a ghost town if anything like that were to occur. People have the money to move to other towns that do not force their residents to breathe polluted air and drink contaminated water. And if you think these and other analysts will not dump chemical waste into sinks and down drains, you are sadly mistaken. It is a well-known fact that analysts do these types of things to cut corners all the time. Is there a process in place for monitoring and treating chemical waste and reagents that go down the common drain? Even with proper training, there is no guarantee that analysts will not dump chemical wastes in sinks. People, humans, residents have to drink this water from their wells. What does this board not understand about poisoning? I hope you have done your research into how other towns were poisoned and got cancer because of nonsense like this. Much like 9/11, there is no way to take back the damage done. Please update town codes. Please vote no to Anelotech. I have a few questions as well. Number one, is Anelotech presently selling their product? Number two, has Pfizer ever bought products from Anelotech? Number three, were any of Anelotech samples ever used by Pfizer? Number four, the catalytic converter will break at some point if it's only for 10 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Frank O'Reilly.
Good evening. I am a Weeblo Boy Scout. In Boy Scouts, we learn to be
Mr. O'Reilly, can you just give us your address, please?
8 Turner Road, Pearl River, New York.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am a Weeblo Boy Scout. In Boy Scouts, we learn to be kind to our planet and respect nature. We practice leave no trace behind. As a kid, it is hard to understand why adults wouldn't protect our environment. Please protect the children in our community. Say no to Anelotech.
Thank you. Finn Farrell, painter.
Hello, my name is Finn Farrell, painter.
Mr. Painter, can you give us your address, please?
134 West Crooked Hill Road. Good evening. I am a Weeblo Scout Boy Scout, and I hope that you say no to Anelotech. I want to breathe clean air. Please, this is chemical plant to a different town that is less populated. Thank you.
Fran Reinstein.
My name is Fran Reinstein, 105 Brian Beth Place, Tappan, New York. Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Board, how ironic that we're all here today, the 45th anniversary of Earth Day, and everybody seemed to remember, and that's terrific. We heard from Mr. Sadowski about the need to be best neighbors. I want to pick up on that theme very quickly to say we all need to be best neighbors. Outcome aside, winners, losers, we all stand to lose, because who's going to want to come to Pearl River, to Orangetown? What about the county when it's in the newspapers of the anger, of the hostility, of the accusations, of the recriminations? Did I hear Mr. Mandel mention threats? How awful is that? So whatever happens here, the news is going to say, who needs to come to Orangetown? Who needs to even come to the county? I'm a resident here 49 years. I've also been out in the academic community in South Orangetown and the business community in the lower Hudson Valley. I want to stay here. So what I worry about is if this kind of behavior continues, if we are not more collaborative in fixing this, in solving this, in getting to the right decision, we all lose. Mr. Sadowski talked about benefits. I worry about the losses. Residents who won't want to come here because they'll say, who needs Orangetown? Who needs the county? So I worry that the gentleman from Suffern is just as concerned as everybody who's here from Pearl River or Orangetown or any other community in our county. It's not about Pearl River. When we throw this stone into the water, it reverberates, and people, businesses too, will say, it's too much of a hassle to come here. So win or lose, the prospect of all of us losing without new business, and of course, the right kind of business, is very, very grim. But the anger and the slogans and the pictures that we've seen, it's really ugly. Do we want our kids seeing us behaving this way? What kind of role models are we setting for our young people? We want people to come here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is, looks like Scott Rarns. I gotta get through this. Just go.
Good evening, Planning Board. My name is Scott Panis, longtime resident of Rockland County. I currently reside at 162 Grandview Avenue, proudly a resident of Nanuet. What I've just handed you is a letter from Senator David Carlucci that I received this afternoon, and I believe somebody's here, but I wanted to make sure it got into your hands. Today, the Planning Board will be making the biggest decision of their life and the political career. You have the opportunity to do the right thing and protect the citizens you were appointed to keep safe. Everybody knows that the cancer rates and the cancer clusters in the area around Pearl River in the last 30 years are higher than pretty much anywhere in the area. On Gatto Lane in Pearl River, multiple homes have people with cancers. Some are already dead, some are still sick. Some houses on Gatto Lane have multiple people in the same home who have suffered from cancer. So I ask you, do we need more cancer? Do we need more autism? For the record, this is nothing like McGee shutting this down. And James Riley, the town attorney for years, has provided you with, I believe, what he called his white document explaining this clearly. So to use the word, this is like McGee and will be sued. The only threat of being sued here is from the good people of these towns who file a class action suit someday when people have been poisoned. Anelitech is in the manufacturing business of poison. Their deadly product, BTX, will be blowing into the children's lungs and our breathing air. It is a known carcinogen. Benzene is linked to cancer, leukemia, birth defects in fetuses and children. Benzene is not only poisonous, but it's one of the most dangerous flammable chemicals known to man. If it explodes, it's been explained to me that even water does not put out a benzene fire. So they talk about safety. You 8 men, Kevin Garvey, Robert Dell, Stephen Sweeney, Bruce Bond, Tom Warren, Michael Mandel, and William Young were appointed to protect the people. Please, I ask you, protect the people. They do not want this. There are over 3,000 voters on our petition against this. There are lawn signs all over this county that say no Inelitech. Our group is made up of educated people: doctors, teachers, firemen, law enforcement, scientists, and nurses. Inelitech has not been truthful from the beginning. Why yesterday did they fill out the 360 form? On 3/11, Donald Brenner said, I have the long form filled out. I'll drop it off tomorrow. Why did it take a month for it to come in? My question to Mrs. Sorensen is, why did he lie at the Pearl River meeting about being a principal? And he still has not answered that. When somebody lies, they're a liar. They're willing to say anything to get this approved. Do I seem like a fanatic? I'm a man trying to protect my family. Shake your head. I'm a man trying to protect my family. After everything you've heard tonight, I cannot see how it is possible that anybody here will say yes. You've all read my letter. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Tricia Riley.
Hello, my name is Tricia Riley, 11 Apple Court, Nanuet, New York. I am a resident of Orangetown. I have 2 small children that I want to raise here in Orangetown. I'm also a pediatric nurse practitioner and have worked within pediatric oncology for almost 15 years. And I can tell you firsthand that pediatric cancer is a horrible thing to witness. I can also tell you that a child dying from cancer is one of the most traumatic experiences a family can go through. We don't want to increase our chances of that happening in our town. Benzene is a carcinogen, which we all know means it causes cancer. But more specifically, benzene is hematotoxic. That means we know it causes cancers and mutations to our stem cells, our red blood cells, and our white blood cells. Studies have shown that benzene affects the blood-forming system at low levels, and there is no threshold. Stem cells are the foundation and building blocks for all of the cells in our body. These cells are clearly damaged by benzene, and so benzene has been proven to be a causal factor in leukemia, aplastic anemia, myelodysplastic syndrome, and probably some of the lymphomas. The number of epidemiological studies of the carcinogenicity of benzene are too numerous to discuss here. In 2014, 3,000 children have already died from some form of cancer. Today alone, 43 children have been diagnosed with cancer. Our goal in pediatric oncology is to make progress and decrease these numbers. Emitting known carcinogens and neurotoxins into the air that our children will breathe does not sound like progress to me. It sounds like reckless endangerment. Do not allow Inelitech to endanger and poison the air our children breathe.
Mark Donnelly.
My name is Mark Donnelly, 382 Laurel Road, Pearl River. I've addressed the last time here, some of the older folks literally tried this junk a long time ago, 30 years ago. We got the DEC to protect the parkland there. There are deer, turkeys all over my lawn at the right time of year. There's animals in there. We have a lot of young children in our neighborhood. As is obvious from everybody, we don't want Inelitech. That's the simplest way to put it. We don't want it. Nobody wants it. If they want to build something like that, let it build where they live, not here. Thank you.
Tom Sullivan.
Tom Sullivan, 112 South Island Avenue, Pearl River, New York. I think from what you've got in your hands from Jim Riley's white paper and his other research regarding the law and legal precedent, I think you have it within your power to say no tonight. I think after seeing the lies and the misstatements and the talk of green benzene and how safe it is and how it's in the gasoline, it's just impossible to trust anything they say. So I'm going to implore all of you to vote no. If you feel you can't vote no, please rescind the negative declaration, put a hold on this until we can really find out what's going to happen at this facility. This kind of operation has no place in our neighborhood. They say that the whole world is watching. Yeah, they're watching. They're watching. Every chemical company is watching to see if they're going to be the next ones in here because they have a similar plant going up making fuel out of plant waste in Stony Point, and they have these guys making BTX out of plant waste. What's next? What's next in this downward spiral of chemical companies coming into Rockland County? This is the first step in a really, really bad precedent. So please, do your best to protect us and say no to these guys. Thank you.
Elizabeth Dudley. Elizabeth Dudley. Justin Devendorf.
Justin Devendorf, 118 North Franklin Street, Nyack. Members of the board, Chairman Garvey, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak. Like I said, my name is Justin Devendorf. I work for Senator Carlucci in his district office here in Rockland. If you called our office, you probably talked to me. I'm one of his district representatives, and I cover Orangetown on his behalf. So this is an issue that I've been really following, closely since it started. Unfortunately, he can't be here tonight. He's up in Albany for session, but he wrote a letter that he would like for me to read that I will also enter into the record. So here we go. Dear Chairman Garvey, I strongly urge you and your colleagues on the Orangetown Planning Board to not approve the application submitted by Anelitech Inc. requesting an expansion of their facility in Pearl River. As you know, this proposal has been met with resistance from many Orangetown and Clarkstown residents who have expressed serious concerns about the environmental impact this expansion will have on the surrounding area if approved. I share their concerns and believe that any level of benzene or its byproducts that will be emitted from the facility is, in my opinion, simply unacceptable. With today being Earth Day, I am reminded of how we all must do our part in order to protect the environment and keep our communities habitable for generations to come. By voting no, you and the members of the Orangetown Planning Board can all do your part to ensure Orangetown residents will not be forced to live in fear of being exposed to harmful carcinogens or other chemicals as a result of the expansion of the Anelitech facility. Sincerely, Senator David Carlucci. If anyone, would like to call our office, please do so. You can speak to me or any of our staff members. While I got you here, our office has moved. We are no longer in Nanuet. If you haven't heard, we're no longer in Nanuet. We are at 20 South Main Street in New City. 20 South Main Street, New City. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, that's all that's signed up. Are there any other people in the audience who want to speak? Yes, ma'am. Come up one at a time, please. I'll get to you.
My name is Barbara Seidel, S-E-I-D-E-L, formerly Gaines. I've been at 44 Sandra Lane for 39 years of my life. I left and came back, but bought my childhood home and wanted to raise my family here. I just wanted to let you know what my day job is. I'm a nurse practitioner at Memorial Sloan Kettering. I've worked there since 2000. I saw 3 patients today under 40 with cancer, and that's pretty much common these days. Cancer now affects people who've never smoked and have led rather well-balanced lives. There's a hidden, incomprehensible cause that seems to doom young people to metastatic breast cancer and seemingly young, healthy men to spreading lymphoma, colon, and prostate cancer. And there doesn't seem to be any logical reason. In the United States, between 1975 and 1994, the cancer rates in women under 40 has risen by 1.6% a year, and even more in men, 1.8%. Excuse me, sorry. One would say, as people are living longer compared to 1940, it's normal for cancer rates to be higher. Besides, women give birth much later, so are more likely to have breast cancer. Taken into account early screening, there are greater numbers of cases recorded. The rise in cancer, however, cannot be completely explained by population aging alone. The World Health Organization drew attention to this fact in The Lancet in 2004. Cancers in children and adolescents are among those that have risen the most since 1970. True, there is a slight increase in risk among women who have had their first child after 30, but the age of procreation in women explains only a very small proportion of increase in cancers. The incidence of prostate cancer, which by definition affects only men, has risen still faster than that of breast cancer in Western countries. It rose by 200% in several European countries between 1978 and 2000, and by 258% in the United States over the same period. This argument concerning early screening is insufficient to explain these numbers. The increase in cancers are not routinely screened for as well. Pancreatic, lung, brain, testicle, lymphoma is equally striking, if not more so. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because I see patients, as I explained to you, repeatedly, and this is the story I hear, and I hear their stories and I say, that's such a terrible story. Oh my gosh, this story's worse than the last story I heard. And then in June of 2014, it became my story. My husband was diagnosed last year, the day after Father's Day, with a 12-centimeter mass in his chest. My mother was diagnosed 2 years prior.
Thank you.
I beg you to please
Thank you.
take this into consideration. Be proactive, not reactive.
Hello, my name is Catherine Spat, and I live at 10 West. My name is Catherine Spat, and I live at 10 West George Avenue, Pearl River, New York. Spell your last name for me. S-P-A-D-T. I'm a Girl Scout, and when we're very young, we are taught to respect our planet and not pollute. And this air is polluting with chemicals that are dangerously exposed with chemicals. We do not want to be exposed. So please vote no to an LTAC. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Finucane. F like in Frank, I-N-U-C-A-N-E. I want to say first, this is a wonderful opportunity for you gentlemen to demonstrate democracy tonight, how it works, how the people want. That's democracy. I'm a retired New York City firefighter. One of the reasons that I was put out of the fire department was because I had emphysema, for breathing smoke and all the other emissions from fires. And over the last 20 years since I've been out, my lungs have improved somewhat. And I know in this area there's a lot of firefighters, and I know a lot of them have lung damage, and a lot of them probably don't even realize it. So I'm appealing to you all to take that into serious account when you do your vote no. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Danielle O'Connell. O-C-O-N-N-E-L-L. N-N-E-L-L. L. L. Linda. 5 Roland Hills Drive. Okay. I came here tonight with no intention on speaking, but hearing what everyone else had to say. I never felt educated enough as the people who get up and speak before me. But there is one thing that I do know. I have the knowledge of what chemicals actually do to the body. 5 years ago, I had 2 small children, and I was diagnosed with lung cancer. During my 11-hour removal of my right lung. The doctors came out and asked my mother, does she smoke? What does she do? She's exposed to something on a daily basis. There is so much soot in her lungs. My family was so confused. It wasn't until they sent pieces of my lungs out for pathology reports that it revealed that it was my lung cancer was due to chemical exposure. I am asking you, please do not expose our children to this. The chemical exposure, even though it seems so little to you, I'd never want my children to walk around and breathe the way I breathe, nor anyone else's children. Thank you for your time.
Honorable Planning Board members, my name is Robert Tompkins, 88 Gilbert in Pearl River. This is quite a case study in a sense. Here we have a corporation who has noble vision trying to solve the challenges this country have, in effect being addicted to petroleum. We have these shortages, and they're trying to help the United States pursuing a good goal. At the same time, we have the local residents who have valid concerns about public safety. And I try to imagine, if I was sitting in your seats, how I would proceed in the sense of having taken a sworn oath to follow the laws of the state of New York, all the planning laws, with the knowledge that no matter how you decide, there's very possibly a lawsuit. What I myself would conclude, what my conscience would lead me over many years, 10, 20 years, the fear of seeing statistics that indicate the worst scenario has happened. What I urge you to do is not make a decision until you have all the relevant information. Try to have as much information you can obtain and draw your own conclusions as to what's best for the community and the country. Thank you.
Andy Colbrenner, 426 Valentine Avenue, Spark Hill, New York. It's a long one. Kohlbrenner. I'll grab the mic like I'm the MC here. I've been in Pearl River 27 years and Spark Hill 24 years, so I'm a rare breed. I'm an Orangetown native. I ran track and distance for Pearl River. I have 4 kids in Spark Hill. They're all athletic, they all run. I know some of the board members have their kids out there participating. That's one of the points that, I was fortunate to have healthy air from my perspective. And, tonight, if I were on the board, I was on the panel, I would just look at your hearts and logic. Does this make sense? Is it really, when you look at pros and cons, is it worth the cons and the pros? It just doesn't make sense from that perspective. The Rockland Economic Development Grant, I don't know, is that healthy development? I can think of alternatives like a pool. That might be a good thing. A recreation center we've talked about for years. I thought they were talking in Haverstraw about Legoland. That'd be pretty cool. But this doesn't sound like really healthy economic development. It sounds like risky economic development. So to me, the cons outweigh the pros. I wouldn't continue with this project, or at least put a moratorium on the vote tonight. I want our community to be healthy, happy, and really, hopefully the board will look at what the community supports, and I don't think the community supports this. Lastly, get my Pearl River message in. The Pearl River is the town of friendly people. I hope it doesn't turn into the town of friendly and maybe healthy people. So with that, I'd like to keep it Pearl River, not revert to Muddy Creek. Please put a no to the vote tonight, and thank you.
Palisades, New York. Firstly, I'd like to thank Mr. Dell and Mr. Mandel for their comments and questions at the beginning of the meeting. Number two, why here and not in Schenectady? I did take some time to research some articles that were written about Inelitech in the Albany Times. Why here? Well, I think the question was answered tonight by the gentleman sitting here to my right. His wife would not move to Schenectady. That's the reason why. So that's why we're here. We don't want to live in Schenectady, where they could actually use a facility like this because they are so lacking in jobs up there. But anyway, I think there were two legal questions here before you tonight. And one of them is, Mr. Garvey, you failed to, in my opinion, to read into the minutes the most recent comments made by Mr. Peters from Demi and some other people. I believe they should have been read out loud for our knowledge. That could have been important. Number two, there's a legal issue raised by Mr. Riley about this permitted use of an R&D. Our town codes are so out of date, it's ridiculous. I've lived here 43 years. I'm Civic Association president, member of the town board for 5 years. I know a lot about planning boards and how they can damage a town. I should like to know what the 84-foot building will be constructed of. It appears from the video tonight and the picture in the Journal News that it's going to be made of some kind of steel or metal. Will this building be visible to the community? And if so, what negative effect will it have on real estate? We've all spoke tonight about the effects of the chemicals, what have you. I think that's been well laid out tonight. I haven't seen anybody come here tonight in favor of this facility, and I think that should be upmost in your mind. I'm a strong believer in the importance of how a land use board can either make or break a town. Yes, you are appointed by the town board, but I think this year it is very important for those who are running for office be asked, what about our land use boards? Will changes be made to have on these boards those people who will protect people like me who have lived here for 43 years, who have been born here? From the developers, it seems there's a move on to bend over backwards, to have developers have carte blanche. I was the one who raised the question, did Nelitech fill out a short or long form EAF?
Thank you,
It was
Mrs.
told
Larkin.
a short form.
Thank you, Mrs. Larkin.
And it's-
Next.
Carmel Riley, 77 West Crooked Hill Road, Pearl River, New York. Good evening, Chairman Garvey and members of the Orangetown Planning Board. I'd like to further expand on Heather Hurley's earlier statement, and we, the residents of Orangetown, Clarkstown, and Rockland County as a whole, want to know the following. Inelitech states it is their intent to expand at the Pearl River campus. In the Mid-Hudson Economic Development Council, they do not mention licensing their technology to other companies and building plants elsewhere. Why on their application is their answer redacted when asked what will happen in year 5 of the project? We want to know that information as well before this plan is decided upon, and you as a board should not be making a decision to approve this plant until all of these and other questions are answered. What you must do is to ensure that the health and safety of an entire community is not put in jeopardy, and we do not have enough assurances from this new technology that has never been studied before, from a plant that has not ever been built to fully analyze everything associated with this. And Nelitech does not belong in a residential community. Please, I respectfully request you think about your options and make the right decision. Thank you.
Laura Woodward, 63 Carroll Street, Pearl River, New York. Woodward. There is so much factual information as to why this pilot plant presents a real danger to our community. We understand that the Pfizer campus needs to be a viable source of revenue for our community. What we don't understand is why choose a chemical plant instead of using and developing this land in a safe and harmonious way for our community. I propose that maybe we need a local economic development council that is committed to finding and inviting businesses that will not only financially benefit our community, but also coexist without having the surrounding community living in fear. It is not fair that we should fear where we live. We have built lives here, made friends, started families, and we're happy here. The idea of having to pack up and leave is heartbreaking. But the alternative is to stay and gamble with our health. I am not comfortable living with the uncertainty of what the true impact of this chemical plant will have on the surrounding area. They have never done this before on this scale. They are researching, and our community is part of the experiment. This is not your typical building expansion. We need to also question what's being built inside. I heard the word reactor tonight. Sorry. They're using new technology, producing toxic chemicals. Can anyone really say that we are certain that we are safe? Not hypothesize, but actually guarantee our safety. Our fears are not unfounded, and the issue goes far beyond just air quality and emissions. Safety is the real issue, and there are several other issues that need to be researched and addressed when considering to allow a chemical plant in a densely populated community. Storage, waste disposal, transportation through our town. What if there's an unforeseen event during transportation or at the plant? Do we have the resources to adequately handle a chemical fire that would be releasing unknown amounts of benzene into the air? To simply focus on emissions alone and not do a full study is irresponsible. Even if emissions could be controlled, what about the many other issues? We need a more in-depth study on the true impact of this type of chemical plant on human health. Why the town board did not consider a moratorium to research new technology and update our codes baffles me. And then another question, if we fail to adequately study new technology and its effect on the environment and human health, what else will be approved? I urge our planning board to step in and take control of the decision-making process, to listen to your community, respect the many people who have voiced loud and clear that we do not want to live with a chemical plant in our community. We do not want any company, big or small, producing toxic, cancer-causing chemicals in our community. We have other options. We can develop the Pfizer campus responsibly.
Thank you.
Please choose us. Choose your community, not
Thank
a
you.
chemical plant that's full of uncertainty.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Peter O'Brien. I reside at 160 Franklin Avenue in Pearl River, New York. My wife and I have just made the largest investment of our lives. We took a blighted home on Franklin Avenue, and we poured, begged, borrowed, and well, we didn't steal, but we did everything we could to make our home. And it's an investment not from a financial perspective, because I will be underwater for the next 30 years, I assure you. It was investment in our children's future, okay? I've worked 12 years as a union electrician in New York City. I have many certifications to my name. I am a New York City and New York State certified asbestos handler. I'm certified for lead abatement. I've chosen to put myself in those situations. And when I do that, I take the precautions to make sure I have the proper personal protective equipment so that I am protected. One thing I know about permissible exposure limits is once you've gone past that, guess what? The cat's out of the bag. It's over. You've been exposed. So you can monitor this all you want. What happens when it goes over? What's the plan there? Because I know when I was in situations where it did go over, I was able to get myself out, and I was watching the air. So I ask, what's the plan if there is some type of accident, okay? As far as a long-term plan for this site, I'm only hearing like 3 to 5 years. Do we really want to go through all this for something we don't even know what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years for a measly, what is it, a $20,000 tax increase? I don't think so. And as far as what we should do with this site, knock it down, plant some trees, because we just lost the forest over by the reservoir. I don't know if anybody else has seen that, but I urge you to vote no tonight. Do not kick the can down the road. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeanette Mahoney. I had no intention of speaking tonight. I came here as a mother of a 4-year-old and a now new 8-week-old. I'm at 67 Margaret Keon Drive. I'm an assistant professor at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, where I spend my days studying the aging brain and how when we get older, how we lose function of our brain. I spent my internship at Montefiore understanding how various toxins affect the brain, including lead and various other pollutants. We live here, I work there. I have no intention of subjecting my children to this chemicals, whether it's a permissible level or not. What's the point? Why do we need this? There's no good that is coming out of this. I don't think anybody has sat up here and said one positive aspect. So I urge you guys not to kick this to the side like the gentleman before me went and said, just vote no. There's nothing for us here.
Good evening, gentlemen, ladies. My name is Raymond Pruker. I reside at 50 Railroad Avenue. Pruker, that's Prucher. Been spelling it all my life. So, I came here about 6 years ago, moved to Pearl River from Brooklyn. Before that, I was living in Dubai, and then spent a little time back in Dubai as a professor. And now I work in Jersey City. Just yesterday, actually, I was on a press check for a graphic design job that I'm working on in Jersey City, and was told that the facility was built over a Superfund site, which most of Jersey City is. Unfortunately, there have been many mistakes made in the past in terms of zoning and who can live where and how close to factories and other things that are harmful to us and our children and our environment. I urge everybody on the panel and happy to see the numbers that have turned out tonight to vote no on this proposition to keep an Elitech in Pearl River or anywhere in Rockland County. I don't believe that burning waste of any type is necessary to us. I understand that fossil fuels are running low and we need to find alternatives to energy, but we have plenty of wind and sun and other things that we can invest in instead of burning the waste of Monsanto and other chemical agencies. And would like to end this by saying when my wife and I moved here, she was fully pregnant with our first child, and we were looking at places to live and drew a circle around the city and landed on Pearl River quite by accident. But also intentionally, because we didn't want to be anywhere near any of these Superfund or other sites where things were leaking out into the environment or had been over the last 100 years. And we don't need this now. Thank you very much.
I'm Max Auerbach. Auerbach. 38 May Road, Pearl River. I'm a normal 12-year-old. My aunt died from brain cancer when she was 61 years old. She was completely innocent. I do not want anybody from this town and from this county to experience anything that my aunt went through and that my family went through. I don't want any families in this community to have to go through what my family went through. Thank you.
My name is Pam Auerbach, spelled the same way and the same address, 38 May Road. And I have nothing to say except that's who you're voting for. And the scouts who came up here, they're our future, and we have to show them the right way. We have to show them that there's something to stand up to and to stand up for. And if $17,000 or $20,000 can mean more than their future and our future, then something's wrong with our community.
Jim Flynn, 9 Uet, New York, 8 Hovenkamp Avenue, Hovenkamp. I'm the closest house in 9 Uet to the Pfizer property. In fact, the entrance is right across the street from mine. Somebody might be closer on the back end, but I'm to the front of the property. You guys know what your job is. Interpret the rules, apply them. Pfizer, and Elitech is research and development. There's no question about it. The amount of material they're dealing with, minimal. The amount of BTX or benzene released into the air, according to the EPA in Rockland County, in any given year, is measured in the hundreds of tons. We're talking 7 to 15 pounds. 15 pounds of benzene plus another 7 pounds of toluene and xylene if this plant ran 24/7, 365. I don't worry as much about them as I worry about the guy that heats his house with wood right behind my house, because he puts out more pollution than that plant will. Okay? Yes, benzene is not good. I wish the world didn't have it. But then we wouldn't have plastic. We wouldn't have gasoline. We wouldn't have a lot of things. Okay? To my knowledge, Elitech moved here from New York City where they were incubated. And probably because the guy that owns it lives in Manhattan. But he moved here because this is where people want to work. They don't want to work in, I don't know. What was the name of the town? Syracuse or wherever else upstate? Okay? They're kind of people that make $100,000, $150,000 a year, have 2, 3 degrees. They want to live in a nice area, close to the city. Okay?
Listen, okay? I'm going to shut you down if you can't have respect for the people who are up here. Okay? Don't do it again. And you know who you are. Continue, sir.
This company is the start of revitalizing the Pfizer plant. They came here because they're research and development. Okay? The amount of any chemical they produce is minimal. They call it manufacturing, what, 22 gallons maximum a day? They'd have to be insane. They'd have to be the stupidest people in the world. They're living and working there. They're really, really bright, and some of them are really, really rich. I don't think they'd be stupid enough to poison themselves. So I really don't think they're trying to poison us. Thank you very much.
Manny Lorenas, 141 Woodland Avenue, Pro River. Larenas. With all due respect, sir, are you crazy? We've gone over this again and again and again. What they do is produce stuff that causes cancer. At this point, we're beating a dead horse. The problem here in this community, I moved here 8 years ago, and I've said this before, this is one of probably the best place I've ever lived. But the problem with this community is the lack of leadership. The lack of leadership that we roll over for every single developer that walks in with a couple of dollars. And we're ready just to sell our souls to them. And it's absolutely ridiculous. This neighborhood needs to stay the same. This community needs to stay the same. I came here 8 years ago because my in-laws lived here, fell in love with the community, bought a home, just refinanced my house today to think long-term. Biggest investment that our family has. Do not take that away from all these people. We vote our town board to lead. They appointed you. We expect you to lead and take care of us. We got to make sure that we didn't misplace our trust in our elected officials. The beauty of our country is, though, we can change that. And I think all these people this year is going to change that. We are no longer going to tolerate our elected officials rolling over. Where are they? They're not even here. We saw a couple of them. They have nice little statements, but where's the leadership? Where's the action? That's what I want to know. These guys have been wrong on Stedge, right? There's nothing there. It's still sitting there. They're wrong on the Orangetown soccer complex because there's no one from this community can play there. And now they're wrong on Anelitech. It needs to end now. You need to listen to these people that you represent. And I know you're afraid of the consequences, but you know what? These people are not afraid of the consequences. We're ready to fight. We're ready to do whatever it takes to not let these people ruin our town. And shame on you. Shame on you for coming here with all your nonsense. You should know better. You have children. And you know what? Your dollars that you're looking to put in your pocket, it's not worth it. Because you're not going to come to the funerals or come to the hospitals when we're sick there. You're going to make your money and you're going to leave. That's what you want to do. We should not say, we beg you to do anything.
Thank you.
We expect you to do the right thing.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tom O'Connell. I'm from Palisades, 660 Oak Tree Road. I wasn't going to say anything, but when I heard the man with the support analytic button on, I decided I had to speak. One thing is, it's clear the production of naphtha or benzene is illegal according to our town code. So that should make it very easy for you. The other thing is, they're building it in an LI zone, which doesn't allow for research. That should make it very easy for you. So you have a very good legal basis to say no, aside from the fact that the entire town wants you to say no. Please say no.
Anybody else? Okay, I need a motion to close the public, and then we're going to take a break. I'll make the motion. Mr. Dell makes a motion to close the public. Mr. Warren seconds. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we're going to take a few-minute break and then come back. 5 minutes, Mandel. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hear from, vote aye? Aye. We're going to hear from the applicant in response to the comments that were made tonight. Some of the board is going to have to, will be asking some questions, and then we'll proceed from there. So, Mr. Brenner? The green light needs to be on.
Got it. Thank you. I just would like to bring certain facts to the board's attention.
Mr. Brenner, I'm going to say the same thing to you I say to Mr. Riley, okay? I don't need to be yelled at tonight, so just.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay?
I don't know
Okay?
if I'm too close,
That's
but
all
I'm
I'm
not
trying
too
to say.
close. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. This property is 209 acres of industrial zoning. This property was zoned industrial since 1942. People saying about residential is not true. This is 209 acres of industrial zoning. This company is here based on what's in your code. Your government said that this research is permitted in this zone, and that decision was made in the year 2014 when the first application came in, and all the evidence shows research is permitted in this zone. No one here has produced any substantial evidence contrary to what Analytech's evidence has been. They've had 2 independent consultants, which they've paid for, which you, the town, hired. They had the DEC, you want to call it a letter, you want to call it a report, whatever it is. They have produced substantial evidence that they are not going to contaminate this area, that they are not going to cause all these things that everybody's ranting and raving that will be caused. And this company is a good company because it's a start of developing an industrial piece of property that has gone barren and which this town needs to redevelop. And there are people here that want to also get the specifics that you were supplied. You asked for a long form. You had your people analyze the long form. They've disclosed everything that you asked them to do. They've gone to performance standards. They've got approval on performance standard. And in nowhere has they violated any kind of statute. In no way have they not told the truth. They've told the truth every time. Sometimes somebody would bring a word in, is this manufacturing? Oh, they lied to us, they're not going to manufacture. They are not manufacturing. They are producing a pilot plant to show something was going to work, which is going to be beneficial to all concerned. So please understand, look at the substantial facts, look at your reports, look at your own consultants, and look at your zoning. Your zoning has been here since 1942 when the zoning code was first formed, permitting this LI zone. It was M changed to LI, which permits all these things. And as the code does change as you go along. If you look at it, your zoning code is changed in 42, it's changed in 47, it's changed in 63, it's changed 2 times in the 80s, it's changed in the 90s. It changes when it has to be changed. Nothing here has done anything improper to what your code is saying. I believe some other people want to give some statements as to related to other things about the company.
Thank you. In my initial presentation, I laid out the analogy of comparing the emissions from our unit to a lawnmower, a simple lawnmower, ones that's used to mow lawns in parks or schools or whatever. It's quite low. Not a single bit of evidence has been presented contrary to that statement. The emissions are minuscule from this unit, and this has been confirmed and assessed by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and by, as Dr. mentioned, 2 independent environmental reviewers. Not a single fact to the contrary has been presented. We're talking about a lawnmower. And if we wanted to look at some comparisons, data published by the EPA, everyone can get it on the internet, for 2011, residential heating, which Mr. Flynn mentioned, accounts for 16,812 pounds a year of benzene emission. So that's wood pellets or fireplaces. Just in Rockland County alone, 16,812 pounds. The maximum potential to emit from the Anelitech expansion is 16 pounds a year. Commercial cooking and baking, 2,634 pounds. This is not anybody's analysis reported by the EPA.gov website. These are facts. So I think we need to keep things in perspective. We're talking about a lawnmower. Some very good points or things were raised about monitoring. Obviously, we need to monitor the unit. This is where I work. This is where Chuck works, all our employees work, and we protect ourselves, we protect the community. If the catalytic oxidizer doesn't work for a second, the whole unit is shut down. The DEC mentioned that we're 18 times below the exposure limits. That's the long-term exposure, meaning that you're breathing from the unit for 70 years. The short-term exposure limit, we are 18,000 times below any limit. 18,000 times below limit. That's in the DEC letter, so it's a fact. Finally, we mentioned in our presentation that we will work with a qualified, independent, third-party monitor, an air pollution expert, and come up with a plan that everyone is comfortable with. So, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That's it? Okay. Mr.
Excuse me 1 second. Well, I made that statement. Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Mandel?
Yeah, a couple questions.
Are you still having problems with the air pressure drop in the design?
No, we were able to design the pipe at 3 inches. This 3 inches, if you look at your car tailpipe, usually most car tailpipes are 2 inches. A larger pickup truck would be 3 or even 4 inches. It's a very small pipe.
So that corrected the problem?
There's different things we can design. It was not that big of a problem. I mean, it's an engineering problem.
There's different ways to skin the cat, so it has no impact on the emissions. The emissions are extremely low, as already been stated numerous times tonight.
Well, you brought it up previously that there were still problems in the design, pressure drop.
No, an opponent to the project brought that up as a pressure drop problem.
I asked that question last time, the last meeting, you said yes, there was.
As I said, we've been able to redesign it or design it in such a way that we minimize the pressure drop.
Okay, I'm not going to have people calling out while they're speaking, okay? We gave everybody in the audience ample time. I'm asking for the same respect. Continue, sir.
Okay. What emissions will be produced by the use of the corn stove and the sugarcane biogas?
It'd be exactly the same.
Same? Okay. These products, there any pesticides on these or they've been genetically enhanced, this corn stove or the sugarcane?
First of all, genetically enhanced biomass would have no impact, zero impact whatsoever. I think people are confusing health issues with ingesting material versus what happens in a chemical reactor in a process like this. Whether it's GMO or whether it's not, it doesn't make any difference at all. As far as pesticides go, the pesticide levels on any particular biomass of an agricultural type are regulated to extremely low levels already by the EPA. We've done an analysis of that. We know that pesticides will be destroyed substantially in the reactor. There's equipment downstream that will collect them, and then after they get through all of that, they have to go through the catalytic oxidizer. We've also done an analysis to look at in a scientifically impossible case where none of what I just described worked at all. And because the levels of pesticide are already, and I can go through a long list of pesticides, is already so low, once they're dispersed into the atmosphere at such a low level to begin with, their concentrations are undetectable 30 feet beyond the perimeter of the...
But when your process is working perfectly, there'll be no emissions?
Anytime. The thing about the catalytic oxidizer is it's always working at a high level of efficiency. And I mentioned before that it's, we have a very large engineering design margin on it. So that's there to take into account any particular transient or anything like that. Again, it's very analogous to your car. When you step on the gas, a lot of hydrocarbons come out of your engine, but your catalytic converter works just fine. When you're cruising along at 30 miles an hour at a steady speed, not that much hydrocarbon comes out of the engine, and the catalytic converter takes care of that.
I'm asking about pesticides specifically.
Pesticides will not be any sort of a problem.
Will they be emitted?
No, they will not.
Okay, that's what I was asking. No. Okay, and as far as I know, with the corn flour, the wood flour, when you bring it in, it's in sealed containers. How would this other product's going to be brought into the town?
They would be brought in the same way.
In sealed containers?
In sealed containers, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Sweeney? I just have two questions based upon some of the public comments. There was one or more comments about benzene being heavier than the gases and dropping to the ground. Can you speak to that?
Okay, the properties of benzene when it comes out of the pipe are, the physical properties are comprehended or calculated by the dispersion models that the US EPA provides. That's what dispersion is. It's the mixing of anything with something else. So in this case, the vented gas comes out of the pipe, it encounters the atmosphere, the wind is blowing in various directions, and it's getting mixed and diluted significantly by that. So that by the time the emissions are 30 feet away from our building, they're already in the part per trillion range. We are significantly at that point already below the New York DEC guideline for the chronic, long-term, 70-year exposure. It's the lowest level, regulated level in the entire world. Right in New York State, they've chosen the absolute lowest range to regulate this, and we are still significantly below that level.
I'm just trying to understand your answer. I'm sorry. I'm still not sure about the question about it dropping to the ground.
Okay, no, the answer is no, it does not drop to the ground because of the dispersion into the atmosphere.
Okay. Second question, there's another comment about workers, employees putting waste down the sinks. Can you speak to controls for that?
Nobody puts waste down the stream at Anelitech. We're a very safety-conscious company. We talk about safety every day. We are a very close-knit group of scientists and engineers, and that is not anything that anybody, I can't imagine anyone at Anelitech would ever do.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think, plus the fact, please understand that the town has an industrial agency which actually tests what comes out of the sewer from, let's say, an industrial user. And they have to prove to the town that this will not take place, and they will prove to the town, because the town does take testing of the discharge that comes from every pipe that comes out of Pfizer.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just also comment in April 15th, Our Town, there was an article about lawnmowers and how old fuel can cause gas pains in springtime, telling people to empty the gasoline out of their lawnmowers and replace it every year. I think, you know, Anelitech's employees are highly trained, qualified, and do that. There's a lot more toxic materials in the community that need attention and control. Chuck's right, we talk about safety all the time. It's a critical part of our operations, and it's a key part of our culture.
Mr. Warren? If perchance you were to have some type of spill inside the building, with your floor drains, are they all going to holding tanks to be monitored or corrected, whatever?
Our tanks are, sit on top of a containment bin, or basically a diked area that collects any potential liquid spills. Everything is transferred in closed piping. So everything we're doing, everything, we've engineered everything to avoid spills of any sort. But the storage containers do sit on, for added safety and assurance, the storage containers sit on a containment pad.
Okay, so if there were perchance a spill and it went into the floor drains, it would be contained?
It doesn't go, they're not floor drains, it's an enclosed area, so it goes into the lower section of the diked area. So we can collect it and recover it that way. It never goes into any kind of a drain. And just, we don't have any floor drains in the building as well, so there's no connection to sewer or anything like that.
Yeah, we're talking about drums, you know, 55-gallon drums, and there are at most 6 of them, and the amount we can store is strictly limited by the Orangetown Fire Department. So you're talking about 6
No,
drums.
I understand that you were going to store them in 55-gallon drums. I was just asking if there was an issue, and, you know, what would be the collection of the spillage?
Yeah, there's no drains.
Okay.
It's contained.
Mr. Bond? I guess my question is for probably Mr. Giardello in terms of, my question would be for Mr. Giardello in terms of the monitoring that we're looking to institute with them, how we're going to go about that.
Thank you. I contacted Mike Trupin from Trinity Consultants. He's one of the former people that looked at this, and he indicated that there would have to be like initial stack test at the stack when they start up the process. And he also said that at the same time they should run a GC at the stack, which is a gas chromatography. And then he said a report would be generated, and he would review the information from that report and see whether it's in compliance with what they originally had discussed in terms of the emissions. And then from there, if they needed to, he would do a further test. But he hasn't come up with a plan yet. I only spoke to him tonight. I was able to get in touch with him. I actually spoke to another company that does sampling, but they don't develop the plans. They just go out once you develop the protocol or the plan, and then they'll sample it, and they generate the report. So that's where we are. But Anelitech has agreed to having that done.
Okay, they also agreed to escrow money for that?
And again, they would pay for it. They had indicated that, so.
All right, and then I guess to Anelitech, I was unclear about your 3 to 5 year plan. That was the first time I was really hearing that this is a 3-year plan, this particular project. So what happens after 3 years?
You look for another project and come back to us and hope it gets approved, or what's the
No.
plan on that?
Basically, the plan with this R&D unit is to run it long enough to get the right data so that we can license the technology to commercial companies all over the world. We announced in January that we'd signed an R&D arrangement with IFPEN, a large French research and development organization that's actually part of the French government, that's working with us on the development. And they, in turn, have a company that they own called Axens, which is one of the largest companies in the world for licensing process technology, like a Nelitex. So once we complete the studies in this expansion plan unit, then we won't need that particular expansion unit hardly anymore. But we will be doing continual process improvement, looking at the catalyst and other things in the program to continually improve the technology. But you don't need this unit anymore to do that. You do that small scale. So long term, for the next 20 plus years, we'll have probably 30 employees on the site, PhDs, chemists, chemical engineers, doing ongoing improvement. And that's how you have a long business doing process technology, because the people that license technology from you expect continual improvement, and that's also how you stay ahead of competition. And so this is our business model. So this unit's only needed for a short period of time. As one of the speakers mentioned, it's very expensive to run, to make the limited amount of material compared to, paying, all the costs it takes to do that. So we want to get the data, license technology, and then do ongoing improvement in the laboratory.
Okay, so the stack, does that remain up, or that gets taken down? Or I heard somebody say something about the building could be taken down in the future, or?
Yeah, it could be.
All right. You own the building, or you lease it?
Well, Pfizer owns the land, so
The land,
Pfizer
so
will
you
own the
have a
building.
lease with Pfizer then?
We have a lease with Pfizer right now. We signed it in December of 2012. We came to the site at the suggestion of the state economic development people.
Okay, and how long is that lease for?
6 years.
Okay, thank you.
But it's renewable. I mean,
Right.
we plan to be here for a long time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's a holding company. Who owns the holding company? I believe it's Pfizer, but it's a holding company, but its name went back to the prior owner, which was American Home. American Home LLC, that's correct. They're on the deed.
Yeah, but they were bought by Pfizer number of
Pardon me?
years back. They were bought by Pfizer a number of years back. They just retained the name.
Pfizer did buy, I don't know if American Home sold it or Pfizer absorbed American Home or
Right,
whatever
but
it is. But the deed is American Home LLC.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Thank you, Mr. Bond. Mr. Dell?
Yes. Hello, is this working now? Yes, all right. First of all, this has been, in my 36 years, one of the most certainly well-attended and also more controversial meetings. And I personally wish to thank our chairman, Mr. Garvey, for his very even-handed approach to this, particularly since well, obviously not everybody's going to agree on an item like this. I would then like to say that I appreciate all the questions from the other members. I particularly support what Mr. Mendel was asking and his views on this, and as well as the other members. I think that we definitely do need corporate neighbors, and I think that there's tremendous potential, from my view, for waste agricultural products to be used in this industry. And I think your technology is a very interesting embryonic technology, but I just don't feel I can at all support this for occurring in Pearl River or in Orangetown. Thank you very much.
Mr. Young?
Again, I don't want to belabor the emissions monitoring part of this. I think we've beaten that to death. The issues brought up for the LI zone, I just would like to clarify. I mean, this is Pfizer. It was Letterly when I moved here, then Wythe. It was an R&D facility. There is manufacturing going on there. Am I missing something here?
If you're asking me, I mean, it was determined by Mr. Giardello back in July that this is an acceptable use in this zone. What came up through some of the attorneys who testified, the LI zone is a more permissive zone. And in the code, it says all manufacturing uses are permitted there. Included in the definition of manufacturing uses, this goes to my letter to Mr. Condon of April 13th, are laboratory and research facilities. Now, Mr. Condon and Mr. Riley apparently respectfully disagree, but in addition to those definitions, there's a column 2, item 9 in the LI district, which refers to the off-street parking, and it specifically refers to research and development. So the fact that manufacturing is permitted in LI would, the theory is that it's there, research and development, which is a less intense use, is also permitted, specifically also because it says all manufacturing uses. And again, there's some, I know, debate over the word manufacturing, but again, the definition of laboratory and research facilities includes, small scale or light manufacturing. So that's the reason Mr. Giardello made that analysis, and that's the reason I pointed Mr. Condon to those definitions in the law and the tables, which indicate that in LI, it was anticipated by some town board that there would be research and development in LI.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Young. I need a motion to close the public. Mr. Bond, Mr. Mandel, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. What? I got it.
Well, did you want to, when you say amend the short EDF, what do you mean? The neg-
Based on this, if you want to say anything else, then you can. Okay. At this time, based upon all the information submitted both prior to and during the public hearing on September 10, 2014, as well as prior to and during the public hearing on March 11, 2015, and the information submitted prior to and during the public hearing here tonight, I will entertain a motion to reaffirm and amend the previously issued negative declaration to incorporate all the environmental considerations that were addressed before the board with respect to this project, including but not limited to the full EAF, which has been reviewed and accepted by the board as part of this process. So I need a motion to reaffirm and amend the negative declaration. Mr. Young. Mr. Sweeney seconds. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Opposed. Thank you. I need a motion for final with conditions. Mr. Young makes the motion. Cheryl? Department of Environmental Management and Engineering, Town of Orangetown has 4 conditions. What's that? What's that? Not for final, until after I read everything, with conditions. Rockland County Drainage, 9. The letter from the town of Clarkstown. John Giardello's letter from March 11, 2015. Bruce Peters' letters from March 5th. Brooker Engineering. The application shows potential significant impacts with respect to stormwater runoff can be mitigated. We therefore recommend that the Analytech site plan be approved for drainage subject to the above project comments, and there are 8. Rockland County Department of Planning, 11. Rockland County Department of Health. Application is to be made to the Rockland County Department of Health for review of the system for compliance with the county mosquito code. Rockland County Department of Highways. Will have minimum adverse impact upon county roads. Rockland County Highway Department work permit will not be required. Another letter from the Rockland County, from the town of Clarkstown from February 27th. The full environmental assessment form, all parts. Including 2 and 3. That's it. Oh, and then the condition about that before they are issued a CO, they have to have the monitoring agreement worked out with the Department of Buildings. Okay, before the final CO is issued and before it takes off. Okay.
Right.
And then we'll leave it up to the Department of Buildings to determine the escrow amount.
Right. The condition will be that the building department will monitor the
Yes.
monitoring and establish the escrow amount. The other issue is they should be required to comply with all of the New York State DEC permitting requirements.
Yes. Okay, no, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. In about 2 seconds, sir. In about 2 seconds, you'll have your answer. Thank you. Okay, I need a second for final.
I'll make second.
Mr. Warren, seconds. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Mr. Mandel and Mr. Dell are against. The motion passes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
On behalf of her, I say thank you.
Yeah. Holt. Holt is up next. Okay, thank you. Thank you. We're done. We're done. Thank you. Thank you. We have other items on this agenda. Thank you. I know. Thank you. Next up is Holt for pre-preliminary and preliminary.
Oh, no, 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 no.
That's because he has no courage. Who's who? Who's giving?
You have a clean conscience, sir?
Okay, I'm going to ask if you don't have any more business before the board that you step outside. We have 2 more items on the agenda. Thank you. Thank you, sir. It's time to... Thanks for the 500. Okay, Mr. Atzel, you're up.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and honorable board members. I'm going to be very brief considering the late hour and you guys have been dealing with that on the project. This project is a proposed parking lot for Hope Construction located diagonally across the street from their present offices. They'd also like to construct a 1,334 square foot addition to their present office. The parking lot is within the required distance for accessory parking. I read through all the comments produced from all the interested agencies. I just have 2 questions on 2 comments. Otherwise, we have no problem with any of the comments.
Okay. Moving forward. The PRC, okay. The site plan shall note the driveway locations along the roadway. The site plan shall note the location of the pedestrian crosswalks. From the town of Orangetown, John Giardella.
I have a question on 1A.
He's right there.
The front setback is, for the zone is 012. We have 31 square feet. Listed that as a variance. We need the variance. 1A. Yeah, but the minimum setback is 012. And we're well below the rule.
Sorry. Did you guys figure that out yet?
Yes,
Okay. Okay?
yes.
So, again, from John Giardella's list, okay, let me see people in the audience who want to speak to this. Okay, to Holt? Okay, I just want to make sure I don't lose sight of that, okay? Okay, so, yeah, so 7 comments. You'll have to satisfy those, all right? From the Environmental Management Engineering, Bruce Peters.
Yes, I just have one question on.
You'll have to work that out with him. There's 9.
Oh, wait, number 3.
Number 3.
That's a big one.
Is that zoning? Would that be a zoning variance or would that be a planning board? Planning board. It's in the land use, that's why I was asking.
So what do you want to, so,
Well, our lot is only 50 feet wide and per the planning regulations, we have to be 50 feet from an intersection. There's no way we can make, the driveway has to be 50 feet. There's no way we can meet that requirement. Mr. Peters brought up that fact and he suggested that we neck down the 20-foot entrance to 12 to 15 feet wide, which we can do, but it would still be centered and it would still be closer than 50 feet to the intersection.
Where the existing driveway is now, do you meet the 50 feet?
The existing driveway for the home?
Yeah, well, no, for the office now.
Well, this is for the proposed parking lot.
I understand that, but currently, do you meet the 50 feet?
No, because there's no driveway.
Well, you have a driveway that goes in there now. The existing driveway as it is now, I assume this first page is the existing?
Right.
Right. Does that meet the 50 feet?
No, because there's no parking lot there. We're talking about the parking lot across the street on the north side of Washington, East Washington.
No, but you have to be 50 feet from the intersection, correct?
Yes, our lot is only 50 feet wide.
Okay, so that,
We can't meet that requirement, no matter what we do.
well, that's what I asked, does it meet it, so it doesn't, you're saying it doesn't meet it now where the driveway is now, it doesn't meet the 50 feet?
The existing home, no. Right now, it's in a residence, but it's in the CS zone.
The existing plan.
With the existing plan, it's, the edge of the driveway is probably about 20 feet away from the,
The existing office, right?
yes, but I'm discussing the parking lot.
I understand that.
Two different parcels.
But you're saying you need, when you move in the driveway, you don't meet the 50 feet?
No, when we move the driveway for the office, we meet,
50 feet before you move the driveway?
the driveway that we're relocating for the office does meet the 50 feet requirement. The parking lot driveway doesn't meet the 50 feet requirement.
You want to go down there and take a look
There
at
is
it?
only one driveway, correct?
There's two different parcels.
Two different parcels.
Oh, okay, so, all right, you're knocking down that old, okay, so it's the old house we're talking about this?
Yes, that parcel.
All right, I'm sorry.
It's late, I understand.
It's late, and I wasn't even looking over there.
On that parcel, parking lot across the way, apparently the driveway opens out right into the crosswalk.
Right, well, actually, what we're gonna do is we're gonna locate the crosswalk on the plan, and if we need be, we'll adjust the crosswalk and repaint the crosswalk for the, with the, you know, the go-ahead by the town.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, Lee, I'm gonna do this the right way, and then you guys are gonna all ask questions, okay? We're not gonna, I know we're all tired, but we got, you know, there's a plan.
You're right,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so from, environmental, okay, Bruce Peters, so you're gonna, we're okay with that, right, everybody? What, Atzel wants to do?
Well, we've got to get from the audience. but-
Okay, yeah, all right.
Well, I got a few questions.
Okay, good.
Let him, why don't you finish?
From
this?
from the Department of Environmental Town Engineering, he's got 9, so does this supersede the, okay, so that's John's. He's got 9. Brooker Engineering.
No problem.
The application is provided support information to demonstrate mitigation of increases to peak stormwater runoff rates can be achieved. We therefore recommend that the whole site plan be approved for drainage subject to the above private comments, and there's 9. Rockland County Department of Planning has
Standard
7.
stuff. Standard county comment.
Rockland County Department of Health, just the mosquitoes.
Just mosquito control.
Rockland
yes.
County Sewer does not object to us serving as lead agency and doesn't want any future correspondence. I guess the DOT wants everybody to start submitting digitally and has no impact. And then correspondence from Rockland County Department of Health, Orangetown zoning, not objecting to the Town of Orangetown Planning Board serving as lead agency. Okay, Mr. Young,
No comments.
Mr. Dell.
Okay, a few comments. First of all, I'm sorry. First of all, I understand the difficulty of designing the parking on near North William Street. I think it's very good that you have it only an entrance from where those 3 roads meet, because that's obviously an accident literally waiting to happen. The main question I have on this, and I'll obviously like to hear what the other people have to say, particularly any residents, is the location of the driveway on East Washington Avenue. Right now, it's not opposite an existing drive, and it looks like the way it's being proposed, it is going directly into an existing drive. Is there any way to change that? Because we try to make sure that we don't have driveways abutting each other, because that literally is an accident waiting to happen.
No, getting back to Mr. Peters' comments, we can reduce our opening from 20 feet to 15 feet, which would be probably the minimal practical. Oh, you're talking about the office driveway?
The office driveway, yeah.
Now we're on the office driveway.
Yes.
Well, presently, the current driveway doesn't work right, because what we do, we have parking on both sides of the driveway, and we're trying to center the access road into the office site on those parking spots on either side as you enter into the parking lot. So, I mean, really, basically, cars exiting the site would either be will be facing out. They won't be backing out onto East Washington Avenue like a driveway. It will be more like a roadway.
Yes, but also, too, you've now acquired all this additional parking. I assume that's for your business?
Yes, we
Okay.
need, yes, this with the accessory parking, we have more than enough parking per the code.
Yeah,
We're
I know
required
you do.
43 and we have 49.
But I just have problems with the two driveways facing each other. Is there anything that can be done with that?
Not really, no, because, and actually, the resident across the street on the driveway opposite is an employee of Holt Construction.
Oh, well, if that's the case, and then it's,
No problem.
he certainly doesn't have far to go to work.
No.
Is
They
he
don't have to
late?
drive to work.
Does he come late?
All right, but
Thank you.
But you're gonna do what Peter said and narrow the opening? Is that-
On the other driveway,
On the other drive over here, okay.
yes,
not
we'll
this
we'll narrow it down to about 15 feet, because that's about the minimum practical. And it will bring it away from the intersection a little bit more.
Mr. Bond?
No, I just want to hear what the neighbors have to say. that's all.
Okay. What's that?
And I assume this will eliminate some of that parking that you... Now
This
that-
will eliminate
I've
the
seen a lot of
parking that's-
parking on the street of late, you know.
No question. That's commuter parking, that's the problem.
Oh, is that commuter parking? Okay, I didn't know whether it was, you know, I just saw a ton of cars there, I didn't know.
We'd like to eliminate that.
Yeah, right.
Okay, for the record, Mr. Warren doesn't have any comments yet. Mr. Sweeney doesn't have any comments yet. Mr. Mandel?
Yeah, just a question on the parking lot. That's a 12-foot buffer you're going to be putting between the parking lot and the residents to the north of it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Is there any sort of buffering along the east side of the lot?
On the east side, actually, our improvements go up just about to the property line. What we were contemplating doing was providing landscaping in that, from our curb to the edge of North William Street, and providing a note on the plan that even though it is on town property, that Hull Construction Corp. Would maintain that landscaping and keep it in good order.
Okay, thank you.
The board agrees with that.
Thank you.
Okay, public, who wants to speak first?
I would.
Come on up. You can use the mic, and I'm not gonna keep you to 3 minutes, but it's late, so please.
My name is Thomas O'Brien.
Okay, Mr. O'Brien, you're the one,
Your address?
you're the neighbor who I was speaking about in the beginning about the.
Yes, thank you very
okay.
much. I appreciate everybody's consideration.
What's your address, Tom, just for the record?
43 East Washington. We're next to the neighbor whose driveway you were talking about.
Yes, sir.
And we are directly across North William Street from the proposed parking lot. We came here with a lot of concern.
I'm sorry that you had to stay here all night, sir.
Well, parts of it were interesting.
Okay.
But in any event, we came here with a lot of concerns. One about the flow of traffic coming onto North William Street, and concern for our driveway. Same issue as you had just addressed, but it would be our driveway, which is on North William Street. We resigned ourselves to the fact that, you know, this could become a parking lot. We didn't like it, and we don't like it. We'd rather have a nicer house than exists there now, and that's probably not going to happen. So we discussed things with Mr. Holt, who has been a good neighbor. We have a great deal of respect for Holt Company. They're wonderful people. We have a lot of confidence and take Mr. Holt at his word that he will be working with us to ensure that we don't see the parking lot. Okay, who wants to look out, you're having a cocktail in the backyard and there's a parking lot. That's a major concern. I presume the driveway factor is something also that could be resolved. We don't have any other objections, I don't think, unless, I just want to be sure when I get home, I don't hear anything that I missed. How am I doing?
No, no. And also, they have to come back for final, so if they, you know, you have another chance to speak about this.
Okay. Okay, appreciate your time. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr.
Anybody else,
Giardello.
come on up.
Thank you for getting back to me.
Speak up to the mic so we can hear you, and your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Sandra O'Brien. My address is also 43 East Washington Avenue. And maybe I've never seen a plan like we were sent in the mail, but it didn't include our side of the street. It's like we didn't exist. So there would be no way anybody would know that the proposed exit from the parking lot, if it's approved, could go directly into our driveway. I mean, nobody would know that looking at what we were sent in the mail. We were totally excluded from any, I don't know the right word. It's like we didn't exist. So I don't know if that's common, that you only deal with the properties that literally abut what's being proposed, or do you look at the total community? So that's my only comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you.
Atzel, can you address that?
Yeah, we'll be adding the driveways along the opposite side of North William Street and adjacent to our property on East Washington Avenue over to the other North William Street on the office side. And just to make a note, exiting the parking lot will be right turn only. There's a sign and a detail on the plan for right turn only.
Okay.
So there will be no left turn heading up into the residences.
Yes, I saw that, but where you're making...
Mrs., you can talk to him right there, and he can show it to you.
No, just, you can stay right where
Just-
you are, and just,
He'll show you on the plan.
But, okay,
Up here?
right, the right turn, where is my driveway?
Well, we're gonna add that. That's why I wrote this here. We're gonna add the information for the driveways here and the driveways here along any frontage that we have where our
But I'm
entrances are.
correct, currently my driveway is not on here, so in other
Yes.
words...
Correct, yes.
People looking at this would be unaware that my driveway is
But when you
across
come
the
back
street.
the next time, it'll be there.
Future plans will,
I brought pictures.
Okay, well, we believe you.
I know, I'm only kidding.
It's okay.
But you did a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, this
Did
may
you
not
hear
be
the crickets when Mr. Dell said I did a wonderful job? Did you hear everybody going? I'm just telling you.
yeah, we're gonna do them. Yes.
Okay, so, anybody else in the public want to speak to this? Okay, thank you. Okay, everything we just said, we're gonna disallow because Mr. O'Brien's leaving. No, I'm only kidding. I'm teasing. I won't. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so, they're here for a preliminary, right? It's been a while since I've done this normally, so I don't remember. What do we do? With conditions, right?
Yes.
Neg Deck, right, lead agency, thank you. Anne Marie, you should be up here. Okay, so I need a motion for lead agency. Mr. Mandel makes the motion for lead agency, second. Mr. Warren seconds, all in favor? Aye. I need a motion for Neg Deck. Mr. Bond makes the motion for Neg Deck, I need a second. Mr. Young seconds, all in favor? Aye. And I need a motion for preliminary with conditions. Mr. Warren makes the motion, we have John Giardella's 7. We have John Giardella's 6, eliminating number 1. We have project reviews 2. We have Mr. Peters, he has 9, but 3 has been addressed, and we're okay with what the applicant has changed. Brooker Engineering says yes, and they have 9.
So you leave 3 in on Peters, right?
So I said, no, but I think the record states it's for itself, right, Emery? Right. Thank you, Emery. Rockland County Department of Planning has 7. Rockland County Department of Health, just the mosquito code. And like I said, the acknowledgement from Department of Health and Zoning Board of Appeals not objecting to us serving as lead agency. So I need a second. Mr. Young seconds? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
See you. Thank you for, okay. Next up is Merit. They're here for preliminary. Same thing, Mr. Who's here for Merit? Are you here for or against? Against? Okay. All right, well, I just want to make sure that I get you into the record, that's all. Okay, well, you'll be able to ask your questions. Okay, so please state your name and your affiliation with the project for the record.
Edward Merritt,
Okay.
applicant.
Mr. Merritt, thank you.
Brenner, attorney.
Thank,
Is Rocco engineer?
is that mic on? Is there a green light?
No, there's not.
Push the button on the top.
There he goes.
Thank you.
Steve Sparacco. There, whoa. Hold on, guys.
Okay, so,
Yes.
okay, short opening, what are we here for?
We're here for preliminary.
That's all you want to talk about? That you were here for the,
Negative, negative deck on seeker and preliminary.
okay. The PRC has no additional comments beyond comments submitted by other applicants. John Giardella has 7. Rockland County Department, Town of Orangetown Environmental Management Engineering has 8. Rockland County Planning, 9. Rockland County Drainage, and if you want these, I'll give them to you when we're done, okay?
I got it.
Rockland County Drainage,
Okay.
they need a permit, okay? Right?
Yep.
And then from Michael Bettman from the Bureau of Fire Prevention, he has 3. And then everything else was read into the record. Okay, so,
Got this.
Mr. Young.
You didn't list this.
Oh, Brooker, I'm sorry, you're right.
Oh,
Brooker
there we go.
is drainage. And they say that the application has provided sufficient supporting information to demonstrate that mitigation of increased to peak stormwater runoff rates can be achieved. We therefore recommend that the Merritt subdivision be approved for drainage at this time, subject to final review. And that's it, no comments.
I just have one minor comment on Mr. Giardello's letter, number number 2. We will build it to private road specifications, but we cannot make it, we have to stay at 20 feet. I think he meant the bed of the road has to be private specification.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
That's not a problem, okay.
Okay.
I can't. I don't, but we will build it in town specs on the.
The depth, right. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Young?
Is the easement new? Was that just added, that easement?
Okay. One of the questions that came up is, can the people that are going to live there use Merritt Drive to Town Line Road? We believe, I will straighten that out with the title company, we believe we can. It's shown on the map that it can be done. Based on that fact, they wanted the T turnaround removed, and therefore it was removed from the drawing.
But have you shown that, do you have the right to go all the way through?
It's shown on the drawing, but I will check it out with Ray Costello tomorrow. He did the title search.
This is the plat that was prepared in 1977, Merritt Drive Homes. It actually shows, note number 14 says, Merritt Drive is owned in fee by Edward Merritt.
Okay.
So he has
Who
the
owns
right
all
by
the lot?
definition, right, through this right of way.
Right, but when he deeded those other ones along the existing Merritt, he may have.
That's why I have to,
Lost that.
that's why I have to
Yeah, I
speak
don't
to
know.
Ray. If we cannot do it, then we're gonna have to put the T back.
Well, that's up to the board.
Well, I think to be fair to the people that are gonna live there, if they have to turn around,
No, you have to.
we will put it back. But if we can get through, then I think we'll be all right.
Okay, we were looking, at the last meeting, the tree line along the east property, we wanted to remain, so we're looking for screening. That property, Mr. Merritt, lot 78.4? What's going in that property?
That is an existing lot which was approved around 5 years ago.
Yeah, I
So
know. I live
a
there.
home is gonna go there.
I'm familiar with the property, as you know. I live,
A home is gonna go there.
okay, so
Those 2 lots are both getting homes.
those 2 lots are getting homes. And then will there be screening on those, on the east side of those properties?
You need an aquifer up here for the culvert. Get the fence up here.
Well, a fence might be better, because you do have that easement there.
We need the outlet, the drainage, and there's gonna be a pipe running down to the natural swale which exists behind the property to the east, along the easterly line. We could put up a fence, but there's not gonna, be conducive to putting more trees in there.
You're right, I forgot about, you're correct, I forgot about the swell and the creek that actually runs back there,
Yeah.
behind the Scotts and Flynn's. That's-
So if the board is interested in the fence, maybe you should make a note so that when we go to Akabor, it'll be incorporated into their decision.
That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Mr. Dell?
My memory serves me correctly, I believe it's basically family members who live around this property.
That's correct. A granddaughter lives, that's in fact, when we did it originally, it was done for a granddaughter, and she built the house on Earhart Road.
Okay. Is there any way that, because this may get sold at a future time, to possibly even give us 5 feet of space between the road and the property line on the easterly side? Because right now, I don't see how you're going to build that. You're obviously going to encroach upon the existing properties. Now, if the family members are okay with it, that's okay, but just as a planning issue.
We will talk to them.
Okay. And also the idea of a fence to put that in, obviously, during this time, I think that would be an excellent addition. The one area I am concerned about is the far southeast corner. And that could potentially be a problem with headlights of the cars. So obviously that area, you'd want the fence to be a little bit even more impervious. You might even want to plant a couple of evergreens in there, or whatever you have to do. Yes, that's correct.
We'll take a look at it.
All right,
Right.
thank you.
Take a look at this.
Mr. Bond?
I have no comment.
Mr. Warren?
No comment.
Mr. Sweeney?
Sorry, just quickly, reading back and going through the history of the recent development on the property, it seems like it's changed the philosophy. It was going to stay as courts for a long time, forever, and be grandfathered down to family. Now we're putting in new houses. It seems like it's a very dense use of the property. I know you said it's all family. Is there a time when the family will come in here and speak to their willingness to have this happen to the houses around them?
Well, I did the original application, and the grandfather wanted to keep the tennis courts going. He did it more as a hobby, he lost money on it, but he really did it because it's the only clay courts that existed really in Rockland County. And when he died, nobody really wants to continue it anymore. And the size of these lots do meet the area size of the zone. The only thing here that's a little different is it's a private road.
That's the thing with the road, the way it comes wraps all around, and it goes close to the property line, close to the neighboring properties. I was wondering if those, since it is family and you're telling us, and
Well,
that they are in support of this, I'd love to hear it from them.
That roadway was already approved on the first subdivision. That roadway is approved. It's all we're doing is we're improving it.
I'm just asking a question. I'm just asking
Oh,
if they're
no,
comfortable.
that roadway was already approved on the first subdivision.
Okay.
So we're not moving anything that was going to
I
approve.
understand. I just wondered if they were going to be coming before we made a final decision.
Okay.
Most of my relatives are just happy that we're finally getting everything all kind of cleared up and settled up. The only reason we kept the courts going, the only reason I kept the courts going was because my father lived there. And, without the courts, I'd have no place to put him, because he'd have to live with me. That wasn't possible.
Your father was
And
okay.
So when he passed, everybody in the family knew that it was the time for, and I'm almost sorry that we didn't take care of all of the subdivisions initially when we did that one subdivision. If we had divided it up into the 6 lots then this whole thing wouldn't have been an issue. They tried to keep the courts intact as much as they could in case we had to sell off those 2 extra lots, to help support. The taxes on the property became quite unmanageable. And so that's the reason why the subdivision was created the way it was, with the understanding or the implication was that, when the time came, the 9/10 of an acre, 1 acre lots could be cut into half, and then you'd have 4 basically almost half-acre lots to build, which is more than ample to build, 4 more houses on, so. But as far as the family members go, my 2 nephews and me. I mean, we're the only ones that live there, and so it's.
And the granddaughter.
Oh, yeah, well, I keep forgetting about her. But, yeah, I mean, they're all on board. I mean, if you really wanted to hear from them, I could probably round them up.
It's
But
only if you don't have have to bring them here. I mean, they're big people, so if they want to speak about it.
Yeah,
have
if they had anything to say, they know the meetings are, and they were
not
more
being
than,
dragged here just to-
more than willing to show up. Thank you.
Mr. Mandel?
Just concur with Mr. Dell's thing about the screening, and they answered the question about the T, maybe, maybe not, depending upon.
Whether.
But we'll have an answer for that when you come back for final, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, so the people in the audience, can you just please, if you want to speak to this, can you come up and give us your name and your address for the record? The rule is that you're supposed to address the board, okay? However, sometimes we're a little lax in that case, and if we want, you can talk to them and they can have a conversation with you, but, so.
Okay, my
What's your
name's
name,
Mary Hooley. I live at 15 Town Line Road. WHOLEY. Our concern is the drainage, mainly the drainage, because our house is right down from the lot where they banked up about 6 feet of earth and put no retainer there. And that's our main concern. It's going to run down into our house, our yard, and into our basement. Where's the drainage going to be?
Your house is in the back?
We're on Town Line, but our backyard
Your house
is...
was anywhere, you're right before the tennis courts.
No, no, no.
Town line.
We're on the corner of Villa and Town Line.
The lot she's talking about.
Corner of Villa and Town.
Okay.
Is the lot directly.
What's the
across
engineer
from
say?
the house.
I'm trying to establish where she's up here on Merritt Road.
Mrs. Hooley?
We're on
come over
Town
and
Line.
talk. Show him on the map.
North of this? We're actually taking the, it's not under your storm and routing it in this basin, and it actually all infiltrates into the ground. There's no discharge from this system offsite.
What about this wall that you built, this
He didn't,
bank?
he didn't do that, my sister did that.
Well,
That's not my lot.
that's not the lot we're here about?
No, ma'am.
Oh. It's been on Merritt?
It's on Merritt, but it's not the lot we're talking about. It's my
Further south.
sister's lot across the street from Uncle Lee's lots.
So you're selling 2 lots?
Yeah, it's the other end, Earhart Road.
You're selling Earhart and Merritt Drive?
Nope, just
Earhart.
Earhart.
Oh, Merritt Drive we're here for.
Yeah, that's my sister. She hasn't made an application to do anything with that property yet.
I'm sorry that you had to stay here all night for that.
All right. You can build 1,000 houses, I don't care, as long as we don't get water.
Anybody else in the audience? Are you fine, Mrs. Hooley?
Thank you.
You're not related to Kevin Hooley, are you?
I'm his mom.
And Brendan, and your grandmother to Brendan and Aiden and
Alice Brendan.
Noreen Hooley's your
Yes.
daughter-in-law?
Yes, that's-
Nice to meet you, Mr. Harris. Okay, all right, when you speak to your daughter-in-law and your son, tell them that I was good to you, okay? Because I just want them to know.
I'm telling the Anthony and Ellen.
Okay, all right, so then, let's see. Okay, so are we all satisfied? Does anybody else in the audience need to, okay, so I need a motion to close the public portion?
I think you should give him final tonight since you had to wait so long.
No, no. They have to go for zone, for variance.
But thank you for the offer.
Yeah, could you imagine? We'll all be in jail. Okay, so I need a motion to close the public portion. Mr. Mandel makes the motion. Mr. Warren seconds. All in favor? Aye. I need a motion for lead agency. Mr. Mandel makes the motion. Mr. Warren seconds. All in favor? Aye. I need a motion for neg deck. Mr. Sweeney makes the motion. Second. Mr. Warren seconds. All in favor? Aye. Now I need a motion for preliminary with conditions. Mr. Bond makes the motion. John Giardella's 7. Bruce Peters, 8. Planning County, 9. Drainage, needs the permit. And then Michael Bettman's 3. Brooker Engineering says okay, no comments. Rockland County Department of Health mosquito code. Clarkstown said that they're okay with us doing this. I'm just saying. Are you sure we want to call him up and make sure he's okay? Rockland County Department of Health and ZBA, we're still live, right? Still on TV. And then the short EAF. And also, so I want to say big tasty to my son, who was watching tonight. He'll know what that means. Okay, Mr. Dell?
Just one thing.
All right, who are you speaking to?
To you, sir, and to the board.
Well, you can speak to the board, but not to the applicant. So what's up?
Absolutely. Okay. My question is if we should not put some sort of caveat in there, and that the reason we permitted these streets to be so close to the contiguous property owners, which is something that we usually don't do, is because they're all related, and they express no objection.
I have no problem putting that in the record. Does anybody else?
No.
It's just for precedence, otherwise.
Does the attorney?
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dell. I need a second. Mr. Mandel, seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion for minutes from, you guys are done, thank you.
Motion.
Mr. Mandel makes the motion for minutes from the last meeting. Mr. Sweeney, seconds, all in favor? Aye. And I need a motion for dismissal.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Bond makes the motion, Mr. Warren, seconds, all in favor? Aye.
What if I'm opposed? All right, good job. Toby.